You are listening to the Foamy Heads Podcast, where we discuss craft beer and anything else that accompanies a glass.
It is the Foamy Heads, back with another episode. Mitch and Rich hanging out on the mics today. We're actually in the back of TennFold Brewing out here. We've got a special guest with us today. Mitch and I are already holding beers, actually, as a courtesy of our newly found friend here. Chad with us today. How you doing, man?
Doing good. How are you guys?
Doing well, thank you. Hey, this is awesome. We can't appreciate it enough. It's just being able to come back here and hang out a while, drink good beer. And just talk about beer, because that's really what it's about, right? I mean, with two guys that are just interested in learning more about the process, drinking beers that we've never had before, kind of breaking down what we haven't had, and just kind of enjoying the ins and outs of each of the beer we have. So we can't thank you enough for letting us in today.
Yeah, of course. Happy to do it.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, though, if you don't mind.
Well, so I've been brewing professionally about 7 years now. Started out at Black Abbey Brewing Company over on Sitco Drive here in Nashville. 2019, I saw an enticing job post for a startup brew pub, which the brew pub model of brewing has been one I've been really interested in getting involved in.
Okay.
And so I went for it. I charmed the hell out of these guys. Like, literally, my in-person interview was with like 5 people at one time. I was like, I was a little bit nervous going into it, but I was like, you know what? I was like, just laying on thick. and we ended up like, it was very natural. Like, we all, we did the formal interview stuff and then ended up chatting for like another hour or so afterwards. And so they brought me on, and it was cool. It was nerve-wracking and cool at the same time. There's a lot of things I wasn't experienced with, such as starting a brewery from the ground up. Like, they were just getting the building starting to build out. So one of my main things after I got hired on was helping with build out. So I did construction for a while, but also advised on construction for the whole building, and then advising on construction on the actual brewery side of things, which I had absolutely no experience with. So you learn a lot really fast, because one, you have to, and two, you learn all the things you didn't know.
Yeah.
And then you're like, man, these guys just gave me like a position that, I really want. And they're paying me really well for this industry. Like, don't screw this up. Like, so there's a lot of, it was really nerve wracking, and it was really stressful for me in the beginning, but a lot of that comes with, I think, anytime you do something new, get involved in something new. So it was interesting. And then we were a little bit behind on construction, as construction projects generally are. And the whole process of opening up any kind of restaurant or brewery never happens on time.
Oh, there's always slowdowns and holdups and code violations and things like that.
Oh,
I'm sure.
Man. And then we were like, cool, we're going to open next week. We're ready. Like, things were rolling. We're going to open next week. And then they shut the city down for COVID.
I was literally about to ask, what time in 2019 was this? Or,
Yep. Yeah. The week after they shut the city down, end of March. So that was another thing that stressed everybody out.
I'll bet.
Because we had all spent months, me and the two guys, the two original chefs in the kitchen, had spent months being on this construction crew, and we were all ready to get back to like what our normal jobs were, so to speak. And then this happened, and we were like, oh man, if this, like, what do we do if this doesn't work out, you know? And through no one's fault. I mean, there was a global, and still is, a raging global pandemic.
Right.
But it ended up, and I think it's a very much a testament to the team that was hired on and the people in charge of running this place, the fact that we're still here standing over a year later. And I don't know how well the background noise is coming through, but we are like, I don't know if there's a free seat in the place right now. And it's
you guys
Thursday
are popping
evening.
tonight.
Yeah, it's bumping.
I will say, Mitch and I have been here quite a few times.
Yeah.
Food's great. Pizza's awesome. Love smoked meats. I mean, that's kind of something that we like to talk about. Quite frankly.
Everything coming off that smoker is fire.
The wings is all we actually had the pizza here one time where they had the mozzarella. I almost felt like that was smoked, or there was like a cheese, not a mozzarella, there was a cheese on top that almost tasted like a smoked
cheese.
Yeah, but the wings themselves were just They were crispy on the outside, super tender, came right off, and it was. And of course, you look at the smoker, and it's just a smokestack coming out of the back, So that was great.
It's
Beers
a good
have always,
sight, and it's a good smell.
oh yeah, we almost sat outside as close as we could. It wasn't as hot out that day as it was like today, So it kind of allowed us to sit outside a little bit. But I mean, just the beers in general are great. Everything we've had has always been really good. And especially this, we actually haven't had this one before. I think this is relatively new.
This is the first time I've had the Saison.
This is the Saison. You want to tell us a little bit about that one?
Yeah, so this is Southern AF Saison. I like to do a couple Saisons every year. They can be
killer name, by the way.
Yeah. What's that?
That's a great name.
Yeah.
Southern AF.
Well, it's because it's all Southern. It's made with all Southern grown grain. It's about 95% Tennessee grown barley, and the rest of it, the other 5-6% of it is wheat grown in the Appalachian regions. There's this maltster in North Carolina called Riverbend Malt. They specialize in only Southern grown grain. That's all they malt. So the benefit of that is that it's super, super fresh. Like it's small batch. It's super fresh. Like it smells different coming out of the bag, smells different in a mash, smells different in the boil. I think you can taste and smell the difference. And a style like Saison that is generally a very yeast driven beer, a super fresh grassy malt characteristic, I think I was like, well, that'll go really well with it.
Sure.
I also think Saison, as I was telling you guys before we got everything hooked up, Saison should be the perfect style of beer for the South.
Yes.
Especially in the summertime.
Yeah.
I think as the South, the beer culture in the South grows, as it has been for many, many years now, I think Saison will catch on and people will start realizing like, oh yeah, okay, I get it. Like it's super dry and it's like kind of weird and like banana-y and clovey, that's kind of weird, but I like it. So I thought a Saison would be the perfect beer to kind of prop up this excellent malt quality from these guys over at Riverbend. And it worked out really well. I'm really happy with the way the beer turned out. And it's not like it's less than 5%, so
easy drinking.
Yeah, porch pounder. This time of year, I like to have a lot of lower ABV beers on. In general, I try not to go too high on the ABV at the brew pub. Like, I want people to hang out and drink a few beers and be able to like drive home, have their friends come by. Like, you order some food and you take your time eating it. Like, it's the atmosphere is like very communal. It's not like get in, get out.
And you can't do that when you have 9%, 10% double IPAs and you're drinking one or two of them and then you're done, right?
Some people can. I can't do that personally. And I feel like there's been a shift in the market too, where you're seeing more of a demand for lower ABV, more sessionable beers. And then so I think part of that, there's been this pushback with like that whole, there was that craze, the race for IBUs in the 2000s, the race for ABV also in the 2000s. And then the whole, what's all the weird crap I can put in this beer?
Right.
Which, I mean, some of it's really great. I'm not talking down about any beer that anybody makes, but just, I think we were so inundated with all these things all the time that consumers eventually were just like, hold on, like, I want something just like easy going. I want to be able to drink a few and still like be able to talk without slurring my speech.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and you see that also with the rise of the craft lager, and which I'm really happy about. Like the Crispy Boy is my thing.
Yes.
So you see these shifts in the market. So I think it's important to understand and recognize those, but I also try to have stuff for everyone. So I've got, like my flagship IPA, West Coast IPA is 7.1%. My flagship Hazy is, that high 6% range. I do a barley wine every year. We release a Bock every winter, which, like traditional, like, 6.5%, 7%. So,
nice.
I mean, we try to get up there with it, but I want people to like be able to hang out for a while. I want to have something for everybody, and that super high ABV, super like, take the enamel off your teeth because of IBUs thing is for some people, but not for everybody. So I want to make sure that if anybody comes in here and wants a beer, hopefully with the 12 to 14 taps that I have, we'll have one. And if not, we have guest taps that we're able to help prop up like other breweries around town and in the region as well, which is also a really cool opportunity to be able to be like, well, you know what? Like, I can't cover that style, but I know somebody who does it so well that we don't need to. Let's just buy kegs from them.
Right, yeah.
That makes sense. And you brought up an interesting point. You were talking about these different crazes that were going on in the craft beer industry. And as I didn't start out with IPAs. When I was drinking craft beers, I was doing what most people do, and they were here and they were kind of starting out saying, okay, well, I'm at a restaurant. They're like, oh, we have craft beer. It's like, oh, well, I'll take a Blue Moon or I'll take a Shock Top, something like that. And that works at the time because it's, it's different than the traditional Miller Lite, Bud Lights that you might have. But I didn't really start catching on to IPAs until much later, say in my craft beer industry, in my craft beer journey. But what I didn't think about was as beers got more and more hoppier and hoppier. I'm spilling beer already. As beers got hoppier,
it's a brewery. There's beer everywhere
true.
back
yeah,
here.
That's a good point. And as the beers started getting hoppier, they started increasing in ABV because you kind of have to offset that, right? Like, Dogfish had 120 minute. That's a perfect example. You've got something that's 17.5% in ABV, and it has to be because there's so many hops in it, And so I found myself climbing that ladder of, okay, lots of hops and then lots of ABV. I didn't even think about the fact that things are kind of shifting down a little bit and they're moving more towards, I don't want to call them sessions. That's kind of it's number one, that's a loose term because I don't think there's really a true definition of what a session is. But I didn't think about the fact that we're seeing this demand kind of more for just, I think you call it a porch rocker kind of beer where
porch
you could
pounder.
Porch pounder, porch pounder.
By
That's
the way,
even better.
that's like the best term I've heard.
I haven't heard that before, and I think I'm going to start incorporating that.
I didn't coin it, but if you guys want to tell people I did, I'm totally cool with that.
Totally. But that's interesting because being able to sit here and say, okay, I'm meeting up with a few buddies of mine. I don't want to have one beer and then be done. I want to have one beer before my wings get here, and then maybe I want to have another one with my appetizer. And then maybe when I'm done, I want to have a couple of more while we're just hanging out for a few hours. You can't do that with a 10% double IPA or, that's super heavy and a stout and that's very chocolatey and stuff. So I didn't even think about that whole shift in mentality. So that was an interesting point that he brought up.
Definitely. This Saison, by the way, is, if you've never had Saisons before, it's a great introductory into one. The nose, it smells a little more sour than it actually tastes.
Right.
So I'm enjoying the hell out of it, to be honest. And the very first Saison that really brought me into Saisons was from Memphis at High Cotton, and they used a shitload of black pepper. I don't know, it wasn't done when I tasted it, but they let me taste what it was close enough or nearing the end. I don't know. It's been years ago. I don't remember where they were in their batch, but it was awesome. I never got to go back and have the final product, but this is the closest I can imagine getting that one. Just loads of black pepper in it, but it's got that same kind of taste to it where it's not super sour, where it's, if you've never had a Saison before, that may pull you away from the genre. It just kind of depends on who you are.
Yeah, and I think if people are wanting to get into Saisons, this is a good gateway Saison. But if you want to know what the style of Saison, like the ultimate, in my opinion, and I think most people's opinion, the ultimate Saison DuPont, comes in a 750 milliliter green bottle.
Yeah.
There's better bottle shops around town are probably where you'd be able to find it. That to me is like the pinnacle of the Saison. It's such the pinnacle of Saison. Like there's a particular blend of yeast. There's a Saison yeast that is known as the DuPont yeast.
The DuPont yeast.
Yeah.
So
and
that's
it's just like I tell my
new.
yeast guys when I'm like, hey, I need to order some Saison yeast. I want that DuPont. Like they know exactly what I'm
They
talking
know exactly
about.
what you're
Yeah.
asking for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to find that and try it out. So
Have you never had Saison DuPont?
I've never had Saison DuPont,
oh,
man.
yeah.
I gotta
Um,
get that. So
What part of town do you live in again?
Just Goodlettsville.
Good. Oh shit, that's where I'm. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm like in that south of Rivergate Mall area.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Where are you at?
Right across the bridge, conference.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so I go to that Kroger.
Oh yeah.
Right by conference. Yeah. That's the
Boy,
nicest
it's
freaking
small
Kroger
world.
I have ever been in my life.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's weird.
Yeah, I was gonna I know you can get it at like Craft Brewed and places like that. I don't know. Working in the beer industry, you don't go out and buy a lot of beer.
Yeah.
Sometimes
see that.
Sometimes I just want to drink gin.
yeah, yeah.
Can I ask about that actually?
Yeah,
That's
sure.
something I'm always real interested in is somebody that just works day in and day out with beer when it's hot and you've had a really long day or whatever. When you get off work and you go home and you shower, do you want a beer or do you want something else? And if it is a beer, is it your beer or is it somebody else's? walk me through what goes through your head when you have a choice of libation after you've been around literally beer all day.
It depends on the day, really. It doesn't. I wouldn't say I get burnt out on beer being around beer all the time.
Sure.
There are certain days where I just don't feel like drinking, or I don't feel like drinking beer.
I don't know what that's like, by the way.
Yeah. Some days, I don't drink a lot of spirits. I have a tendency to drink things at the same pace that I drink beer, and so I find that sometimes I get myself into a little bit of trouble if I drink some spirits or mixed drinks or whatever. Yeah, and it's not like I'm not trying to be like a sprinter with it, but it's just like the natural gait of how I drink. And working in a brewery, like I drink a lot of water and I drink it very fast as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, and then I'm down in coffee in the morning trying to because coffee is a tool. It's not.
Yes.
It's not a treat. It's it's totally a tool to get.
It has one purpose, right?
Yeah,
It's to get you going. Yeah.
So there's a lot of. I just naturally don't pace myself very well with mixed drinks because I just am used to just being like we're doing now, casually sipping beer and chit chatting, whatever. But my go-tos that aren't beer, gin and soda water. With some kind of fresh lemon or lime. Lemons and limes are my favorite fruit, so some kind of fresh lemon or lime in it. I was doing gin and tonics a lot when I wanted gin, but I don't really like high fructose corn syrup, and aspartame gives me a headache. So I had a tenant for a minute, that a fellow that was renting a room in my house, and he was big into all the sparkle waters, and he got me into them. And so I'm all about that sparkle water life. And mixing it with gin is great.
Hey, there you go.
Perfect.
Also, Knob Creek is my house whiskey. When I do buy whiskey, I'll have some Knob Creek around, and every once in a while, like after the sun goes down, and my dog needs to go outside, I'll let her run around the backyard a little bit. Like I'll sit on the porch, a little bit of Knob Creek on the rocks. But yeah, otherwise it is mostly beer.
Yeah.
Part of that is availability. There's a lot of really great beer around town. One of my friends from Jackalope, she comes, Andrea, who runs their canning line. She lives in this neighborhood and comes by here every once. She'll text me every once in a while, like, "Hey, are you going to be at work?" And she's always coming in. She always rolls in with a fresh case of like freshly canned beer.
Oh,
perfect.
awesome.
So their beer Sarka is one of my favorite beers in town.
Yeah.
Of course, I love everything going on at Black Abbey. I think one of the most underrated beers there, out of year-round beers, their Belgian Double Special.
Ooh,
If you haven't had that, it's one of their year-round beers, and it's so well made. But again, I think people don't understand the Belgian Double style necessarily.
Oh yeah.
In this market, again, as people are, they just don't have experience with it. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think that's one of the most underrated beers that they have over there. And all the other stuff they're doing is really great. The Tennessee IPA is really good. That one's really refreshing for summertime. Again, lower ABV.
Yeah.
Nice fruit character to it. And then, goddamn, I just love pretty much, like, I could probably go on and on about all the beers I love around town.
Yeah.
Well,
But suffice it to say that, like, every brewery in town has at least one or two beers that, like, I think are bangers.
Yeah.
I want to give a shout out to Various Artists, which is over on Elm Hill Pike though too.
I love those guys.
That is one of the coolest vibes in town.
Yeah.
And the beers that they're rocking over there are phenomenal.
Yeah.
And Jeff and Pat are two of the dopest motherfuckers I have met in this business ever.
Yeah. It's great. I will interject my one of our co-hosts, DJ. He's on the show from time to time. He actually used to work right across the street from Various Artists, so they kind of thought of him as Norm from Cheers, because it was like once they opened, he was there every single day ordering an IPA, ordering 2 or 3 or whatever. And he said he had gotten to the point where he just walked in and they were just like, "All right, this is what we have for you." And he would just take one. So,
Nice.
But when you're across the street, he does. I know he's in media, marketing,
Right.
advertising, and stuff like that. So he'll just come across the street, at any point in time, and that's how I learned about Various Artists. I'm in Murfreesboro, so I'm a little ways out, and he was like, "Hey, this new brewery just opened up downtown. You guys want to meet me?" And so I show up, and I don't see his car in the parking lot. He's like, "Oh, it's right over there." And I look at it, it's his job. Literally walked across the street to sit down and have a beer. So that's kind of like the perfect place to be.
It is.
So
That's
shout out
cool.
to Various Artists. Those guys are super
they're-
dope.
Yeah, of breweries that I actually like have time to get to and visit. They do like an industry night, monthly. I think it's the second Wednesday of every month. So it's always nice to get down there and like see people that you know. But it's also just like a welcoming, like homey place to just like be comfortable. That back porch area is great.
I love that new area they built out there.
And when I first heard they were opening, and I was like, wait, you're opening a brewery, like 4-barrel system that is a 20-seat capacity tap room at the most.
Right? Yeah.
I was like, are these guys crazy? Like, I have to get over there just to like, I just can't believe that they're doing this. And then the first time I went over there, I was like, oh, I get it.
This is dope,
I get how they're going to be successful. Like, this
Yes.
place is just really cool.
Yeah.
And then like, I mean, they got, they had trouble like all of us during COVID, but they took that time to like redo that back area. I always want to call it a patio, but it's not really a patio. It's more like a really cool. It actually reminds me. My dad's my grandpa, my dad's side, his backyard in Florida was all gravel,
Yeah.
but done up really nice. He had a lot of nice plants and stuff, and Jeff being an arborist, of course, they're gonna have like really nice foliage.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But it kind of gives me that feel of like his backyard, where it was just like it was the first time in my life I'd ever seen a backyard without grass. The first time I remember going to my grandpa's place, and so going back there and all the gravel and the nice foliage and just like a comfortable area to sit. I don't want people to take this the wrong way, but it's got those heavy grandpa's backyard vibes.
It does, but it's like it's got that pimped out feel to it.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, for sure.
There's like a slight little edge to it that it's perfect. It's kind of like the front half has the dining area, and then the other parts where it's kind of like where you would go out and find a round picnic table and sit down with family kind of aspect to it. There's even like wood stump seats and stuff off in a corner, if I remember right. And it brings up a lot of memories for me. So it's definitely a very unique place here in Nashville. No one else has anything like it.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
So back to our beer. No.
Yes, yes.
I see that you guys are empty. Any particular style you're feeling?
I'm kind of interested in that Hell's Lager. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah.
Let's do
it.
All right, sounds
All right,
good.
yeah. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
So while he's going to grab that beer, I want to comment on that Saison was super killer.
Yes.
It was so good.
It was awesome. It's one of those, what was it? The porch
It was a porch pounder.
pounder.
Porch
That's what
pounder. Yeah.
That's what the fuck it is.
That's
it's
great.
wonderful.
Yeah. It was super good. He talks about trying to get the beer of the South. It's supposed to be a Saison, and I hate that we missed the conversation. It was before we had actually hit record, but
We got into it.
I'm always bad about doing that, Mitch. But excuse me. Talking about Saisons, and we've mentioned this from time to time, it's always difficult for me to like a good Saison because most of the time they tend to be more sour.
Right.
And
The
as
sourness
it's
is
known
what gets
here
a lot
on the
of people,
show,
man.
it's just sours turn me off.
Yeah.
There's very few that we've actually had here that I go, you know what, this is actually really good. I think about Living Waters was a really good one, a good Goza that they had.
The Goza was surprising, took us by surprise immediately
Yeah.
on opening and then drinking.
Yep.
So I'm looking forward to just seeing Nashville pull out all these different styles. The one thing I'll double back on the double that he was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that Nashville doesn't have that Germanic influence in beer at all, really, here. It's one of those things where you still have to go to Europe to really appreciate the origins of beer. You know? So it's one of those things where someone's got it really good, none of us would know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it's an ignorance thing, and that sounds bad at face value, but literally the definition of that is we're not around it enough, and it's not our fault. We're not around it enough, and we can't experience it. So when you get a brand new beer for the first time or a new style, it's something you go, oh, this is weird. I don't know if I really like this or not. But in reality, we just haven't been around it enough, so we don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
These look awesome.
The man is back.
Thank you.
Chad, thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Tell us what we're drinking here.
So
This is the hell. Oh, that smells great.
Yeah, it does.
I was about. Oh man,
it's a
that smells killer.
it's a dry hop Helles lager. That for whatever reason does not clear up very well. The first two batches of this were like completely see-through clear.
Way.
And we don't filter, so
Yeah.
But then after that, every batch after that, it clouds up a little bit.
It looks hazy.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's definitely unfiltered. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out what's going on there. But it doesn't change the flavor profile or the aroma at all.
Right.
It just changes the look. But it's brewed just like a Helles, except I dry hop it with some Cascades. Not too heavy on the dry hop, just enough to get that nice like fresh citrusy character to it.
Sure.
But it starts really clean, finishes clean. You get a little of that nice cascadey flavor in the middle there. But it's international dry hopped Helles lager because I decided that was going to be a thing.
International dry hopped Helles lager.
Yeah, it's international because I use Scottish malt, American hops, and Norwegian yeast.
It's international because he says so. Did you already take a sip?
That's
oh, okay.
That's the best part about. I was talking to someone about this the other day. The best part about working in the brewing industry is we're not like stylistically we're not limited by things like grape varietal or like it has to be filtered through this and sit in a first use oak barrel or whatever. And it's cool that there's rules and there's rules to certain things.
Sure.
But for the most part, if you're just like, I don't know, I kind of think it's like this, so I'm just gonna call it this.
So that's what it's
you're
gonna
totally
be.
allowed to do it. So sometimes we're only limited by our creativity, which I enjoy.
Definitely, yeah.
Being in this business.
This thing's first sip, dude.
Yeah.
It's called the Early Riser. It's one of my year-round offerings, so you can come down anytime and get it. This is actually a really fresh batch too.
It tastes awesome.
Yeah, it's really good. It's a little bit sweet, but it's got that dry, like almost like a lift on the end.
Little malty.
Is that what is that? That's on the finish. I'm trying to figure that out. It's super like it stays with you. I don't want to say tart by any means. It's just more like
it's that citrusy flavor from the Cascade hops.
Okay, so that's what that is.
Yeah,
then. All
you get a little bit of that in the end, but otherwise it very much drinks like a Helles. It's got a little more body. I use this Simpson's Golden Promise malt, which for anybody that knows what that is, it is my favorite malt. It's my favorite base malt in the world. It's got this really nice like biscuity character without being like super. It's subtle in a lot of ways, but it's got this nice warm biscuity toasty character that I really like out of it.
Is this used in more than just the Helles lager? This right here. I mean,
this is used in basically anything that's got pretty much anything that's got like malt character to it.
Okay.
So our English Golden Ale, Flat Pedal, Howling Winds, Scottish Ale, the Early Riser here, just brewed a one-off. Like it's going to be a one-off hoppy thing today. That was just all this, no other grain, just Golden Promise. I generally will use some like just regular pale malt in the IPAs because malt character isn't necessarily you don't balance really high on malt character in an IPA. You're looking for that hop, that stronger hop side of things.
Yeah,
right.
And pale malt is cheaper than Golden Promise. Like, so if nobody cares about what the malt character is,
but to your point, it's
right,
not. That's not the focus on the IPA, right?
Right,
It's more about
exactly.
hop profile and things like that.
Yeah. Most of the lagers though are Pilsner malt because it's so light and grainy. I like that grainy character out of the Pilsner malt as opposed to like a soft biscuity toasty character that I get out of the Golden Promise. But I'm also really I've always been into malt forward beers and English style beers and stuff. And Golden Promise like lends itself well to those kind of beers.
What's your favorite style of beer to brew in general?
Whatever one gets me out of here the quickest.
That's fair. That's a fair question.
The process. I mean, in the end, the process is the same.
Right.
Other than for things like everything takes longer with IPAs. Part of that is because I do all my whirlpool hops between 170 and 180 degrees, so you have to cool the kettle down.
Yeah.
Which takes some time. Cooling the kettle down through your heat exchange also clogs up your heat exchange because of all the hot matter that's already in your kettle.
Oh.
There's some additional labor there,
and
right?
And then a lot of extra cleaning.
Yeah.
Especially on the heat exchange, you need to do a lot of extra cleaning going forwards and backwards through that sucker.
Oh my god.
So those always take longer. I mean, it's a labor of love.
Yes.
Those always take longer. So anything that can get me, like, if I'm done with cleanup and walking out of here in 8 hours, then that's my favorite beer to brew.
Yes. I
That's
totally
a fair answer,
yeah.
actually.
But again, the process doesn't really change at all.
Sure.
Right.
It's, I like something that's like a 5% beer. Cleaning out the mash tun's a lot easier too. So there's that as well.
Right.
You know, cleaning out the mash tun with the barley wine, where you're almost like spilling out of the thing.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
That was a day that I wish I had an assistant.
Gosh.
But you're a
He
better
doesn't.
man for
He
it.
doesn't. Yeah,
Yeah.
he does not know what's waiting for him in November when we
Oh,
brew that thing again. Sorry, Clayton.
So tell us a little bit more. Excuse me. Only had like 1.5 beers. I don't understand what's going on. Tell us a little bit more about this one. ABV. I can't remember what you said.
It's
On the Hells.
It's like 5.5.
Okay.
5.5, somewhere in
Okay.
there. I should be more up to date on all these, but I mean I've knocked out almost 40 beers in the first 40 different beers in the first year and a half. So
Yeah.
Crazy.
I lose track, but yeah, it's in that 5 to 5.5 range. Really simple. I mean, it's just Golden Promise malt, and cascade hops, and then you know, yeast. That's all there is to it. I usually try to take a simple approach to beer because I don't think beer needs to be complicated. My approach to brewing is not beer needing to be complicated. I think the subtleties of each of the ingredients come through better when you're not trying to overdo things, especially like when I started out as a home brewer, and I think most home brewers do this. It's just like you get so excited and you're reading up on all these different ingredients and like the characteristics they can give, and you get all these ideas, and it's like sensory overload. And then you're just like, God damn, these beers suck. And it's just because you're trying to do too much at once.
I can
It's
see
you know,
that.
it's about focusing, simplicity, the KISS theory, keep it simple,
Keep
stupid.
it simple, stupid.
Yeah. And I very much try to live by that in my brewing. I do like to have fun. I mean, I've got a freaking kettle sour kaffir lime blackberry goza on
Oh,
tap right
man.
now, which I'll get you guys after this one because you do need to try that.
That sounds
I'm
awesome.
super stoked.
Yeah.
I'm super stoked. The kaffir lime character in that. I'd never worked with kaffir limes before, but I love them.
Yeah.
You know, I love a lot of Thai and Indian food. I found out that we could get them fresh from one of our food distributors.
Oh, no way.
Also find out they're very expensive.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
But that's okay. It's a one-off. But I was watching. I was at my parent. My folks moved to Tennessee like 7-8 months ago, and I haven't lived this close to them in probably about 20 years.
Oh, wow.
So I've been trying to take advantage of them being closer, and so we usually get together once a week. Usually on Sundays or something. I'll bring the dog over. We'll go over there for dinner. We'll hang out. And there was one day I was over there, and they were watching the Great British Baking Show,
Oh, yeah.
which I'd never seen before. And this guy had made a blackberry lemon tart, and I was like, man, that would be like a good, like, blackberry and citrus would be good.
I
in
wonder how that would go in
goza.
a beer.
Yeah. I was like, what if I made that but a beer?
Heck yeah.
But I decided to go lime instead. Talking to one of our old chefs, one of our former chefs, and he was like, I was talking to him about the beer, and he like brought some leaves out and pulled them apart, and he's like, tell me what these are, and I smelled them, and I was like, these are kaffir lime leaves, aren't they? He's like, how'd you know that? I was like, because you're obsessed with Thai cooking. I was like, they look like lemon leaves, and I know you love Thai cooking, so I know they're kaffir lime leaves.
There you go.
It's not because I like could smell them and tell. But they smelled great, and I was like, wait, can you get these on the rig? And he was like, absolutely. So we started
Wow.
formulating the plan.
That's
He was just like,
awesome.
give me two, like, if you let us know 2 days before, we can get them in. We can get them in the next day, and then you can, come in the next morning and chop them up, whatever.
That's awesome.
But the lime character in that beer is real nice. It comes out in the end. It doesn't smell limey, but it ends like biting into a fresh lime. I'm really stoked on that beer.
Dude. So that's probably your favorite one currently.
It's one that I'm most proud of because when you've never done something before and it comes out exactly like you imagined it, it's really exciting. And then when when it moves really fast through the tap room,
Oh,
sometimes you
That's
think
affirmation, right?
Yeah, you think to yourself like, oh, I might actually know what I'm doing.
dude, I'm curious what Untapped feels about.
Oh God.
We all
The-
hate Untapped.
The
here.
whole untapped rating system, I'm sure, is detrimental to most of
Yeah, honestly,
breweries around
it's hard because it's so subjective. Like
It is.
3 stars for somebody could be like the best thing. It could be the best thing they taste, and like 4 for somebody else could be like, well, this is average. Like, I think a good rule of thumb, Untapped is useful in some ways as one small tool in our tool belt to understand like what beers are moving and what consumers are drinking.
Yeah.
But it's not the know-all end-all of it. I definitely I feel like if any beer for any brewery is somewhere between 3 and 3.5 stars, based on the fact that there is no Like everyone judges a 1 through 5 or a 1 through 10 judging system differently.
Yeah.
If you're somewhere between 3 and 3.5, that's a good beer.
That makes sense.
That's kind of how I've taken it with people that I've seen and follow on there too. Because the 1s are definitely a no-go, and 2s, no, not against. But 3s and above, people usually comment good things. But
Right.
And again, it's like, if you liked it, why isn't it a 5? You know,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like people, everyone judges things differently. I will say I have had some of my favorite comments.
Oh yeah.
I do have a couple.
I was really hoping this part was going to come out, by the way.
One of my favorites was early on here. I think it was a Berliner Weiss. I had a kettle sour Berliner Weiss, and someone commented, "It's very tart, but not sour."
What?
And I have to laugh at stuff like that because I think I understand what they're trying to say.
Yeah.
But when you go based on the words that they used,
yeah.
it's like, I don't know what sour means to you. Well, I do now. They're thinking funky, wild fermented, Brettanomyces,
Right.
You know, blends, like not a simpler kettle sour, because that's all we really have the capacity to do here, because I don't want to infect the whole brewery.
Right.
Like I'm not sorry, Joel. I'm not going to become Barrique.
Yeah.
By accident. You did it on purpose very well. So
He really did. I'm going to throw it out there. He really did. Yeah.
There's only 700 barrels in there.
Something.
Another one of my favorites was this was back in my Black Abbey days. I had done this as I used to run the pilot system there among my other duties.
Oh, cool.
And so I had fun doing a lot of experimental stuff. And I made this just this like lactose hazy IPA, because it was like that 6 months where those things were really cool.
Yeah.
And I was like, I hate these, but I'm gonna make one because I bet I can make one that's really good. And I did, and it sold really well. So we were like, all right, let's do a 20 barrel batch of it. And
So what's the name of that one?
Okay, so, and I blame Carl for this.
Oh, I'm jumping the gun. I didn't mean to
No,
do
no,
that.
no, 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 no. It's absolutely like it is absolutely like the worst name. And I understand why it was named that way. It was in conjunction with Hal Gill, formerly of the Predators, that has a.
Oh yeah.
He's got like a radio show called Bag Chucker, where they like chuck their bags go to a new city, chuck their bags on the bed in the hotel, and then they go drink beer.
That's kind of cool, actually.
So they named the beer Bag Chucker, which it sounds gross coming out of your mouth,
right.
but it also, like, considering we're in the South, I was like, hey, I don't know if you guys like.
I think it'll work. But
I was like, not my brewery.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
No, I mean, it was fine. Like, it sold really well. I mean, people really liked it. But there was this one event, and really early on when we released out in the market, there was this one event, and I was looking at Untappd. I was like monitoring a sparge one day, and like when you're monitoring a sparge, like there's a lot of things you have to check on, but you can't really leave. So there's a lot of time to like just kind of fiddle around on the phone, check emails, do things like that. You know, scour Untappd and like just destroy your ego.
Yep. See
so
who's giving the best beer ever a 3.5, right?
I was just checking out like what people were saying about the beer, because it had been out in market for a few days, and I saw this 1-star review, and I was like, oh god, let's have it, let's do this,
bring it.
And this guy was like, it was something like, I don't know what they're doing over there. This is not an IPA. I don't know how they define an IPA. Blah 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 blah. But then he ended it with, "This is the worst IPA in the world."
Oh my god!
And I was like, I want that on a shirt.
Yes.
John and Carl were not as excited to get it on a shirt as I was, so they didn't let me. Well, I mean, they wouldn't have cared if I had paid for it. I was trying to get them to pay for it.
Right.
So I mean, but that kind of stuff, like, I think you have to roll with the punches. Over the winter time, it was still, well, it was maybe a little bit after, like, in between that kind of time we have in between winter and spring, where it's like warm enough to sit outside but not for too long.
Mm-hmm.
I was with a group. We have a brewers group that gets together about once a month, just like just like people that work back a house. Like, we get together at different breweries host. There's usually like some kind of educational theme, and then we drink our sorrows away together.
Yeah.
As a family. So I was at one of those, and I was talking to some people that in the industry that were new in the industry that I hadn't met before. And this one fella, that They had opened up a brewery almost around the time we did.
Huh.
And I hadn't gotten to meet him, and I was interested about their beers and stuff because they were newer in town. So I was talking to him, and he was like, "Hey man, can I ask you something?" I was like, "Absolutely, dude.
Yeah.
Like, bring it. Like, this is what these meetings are for." He's like, "I'm having to like, people say some really mean things about my beer, like Untapped and stuff, and I'm having a really hard time dealing with it." And I was like, "Dude, you need to lean into it." I was like, either don't care or lean into it.
Right.
Like, one, it's the internet. People are very brave on the internet. Two, like, people are totally entitled to their opinions. And three, like, you're not going to always please everyone, but you know that you're going to be your most staunch critic. So if you're happy with where your beer's at and you think it's done right, and you know it's right, and stylistically or whatever you're going for, then that's the most important thing.
Right.
Of course, well, second, people buying it and being able to survive as a brewery, of course, is the most important thing.
Very
But
great.
down, like outside of the business level, like as a brewer sort of thing, like you're going to be your staunchest critic. So if you're happy with where the beer is, you know everything wrong with that beer. And you know the things that are wrong with that beer that nobody's going to notice.
Right.
And if you're still happy and you think that's proper and you're confident enough to put it out there and market, then that should be the first step that you take to being like, I know this is good.
Mhm.
I know this is worthwhile. And also, like, after that, like later that evening after I got home, I was curious, so I checked out their own tap page.
Yeah.
Literally nothing but great things.
So just
I
the
don't-
one got him down.
Yeah,
for a
I don't
minute.
know. I don't know. And- But I understand. like, that's in some ways, and I think it's easier the longer you've been in the business to like step away from it that way. But especially early on, like it's like, you know, this is me in some ways. This is me professionally putting myself out there
Right.
for people to just totally go to town and judge on me.
Yeah.
But it's not about you. It's about the beer. Like I've had some beers that I'm like, well, this isn't for everyone, but there's a market for it.
Yeah.
And there absolutely were very slow moving beers that people had very low but fair ratings, you know,
Yeah.
based on like, you know, some beers that were just like, it's like, well, this one is for your old school IPA drinkers because this will grit the enamel off your teeth with IBUs.
Yeah.
That's not for everybody.
Exactly.
But there's a sect of drinkers out there that want that. So while it's not going to be, I'm not always going to have rotating things like that. You have to do things like that every once in a while. But you have to lean into the punches. And I was like, dude, make t-shirts about it. I don't know, like do something to celebrate the fact that like somebody cared enough about your beer, whether it was good or bad, to try to destroy you online.
Yeah.
But you're stronger than that. You're better than that. Your business will survive beyond that, you know?
Do
So-
you like has that happened to you before where you touching to what you said just a minute ago, it's like sometimes you brew something you go, this is not the best beer in the world, but I think that if I could do this next time. So do you release beers with the intent to go, okay, next time I do it, I'm going to make this tweak to see if I can change the flavor profile? Not to say you release a subpar beer or anything, because you're still happy with it in the end, but because there's time involved, right? From the time you drop the water in the very beginning until the end, there is a good amount of time to where you go and you taste it and you go, okay, this isn't what I was expecting it to taste like. I think if I tweaked this next time, then I could get there. Does that happen a lot I would imagine in this industry?
Constantly.
But, okay.
Constantly. Like I'm always, even year-round beers, tweaking the process a little bit, understanding like, you know, getting that mash pH just right, or
yeah.
like maybe it's like, oh, okay, like, I mean, especially in the beginning, you know, it's just like, okay, I got to tone down this character of the beer, or I got to tone up this character of the beer. But always, especially with year-round beers, always small tweaks happening all the time.
Sure.
There's always improvements to make. And I think most breweries are always, I don't think there's any brewery that's just like, for the most part, that is just like, oh, we got this perfect, and it's perfect every time.
Because it's
That's
not.
gonna happen.
It's not.
Right.
There's
and
no
then,
way.
Right.
Yeah, and so to answer your question in a very long-winded way, yes, I'm always tweaking beers, not necessarily because of quality control issues, but just because that is to get to a level. I want to get to a level of consistency, and I want to get to a place where it's just like the same every time. And so there's tweaking of the process, not necessarily the flavor profile. Sometimes, like a few months ago, I was reading up on diminishing returns and dry hopping, and I was like, I wonder if I could save up some money on some of these beers. And so slowly but surely, a few batches of hoppier beers. Take a pound out here, take a pound out there. Are you still getting the same flavor profile? As long as you're, if I think it tastes pretty much exactly the same, then the consumers are going to most likely
probably think the same as well. Right?
Yeah, and if I can save a little bit of money, save a little bit of raw materials, then that's worth it. So yes, we are tweaking beers all the time. I mean, even when I was at Black Abbey, like up until the day I left, even after I left, I was talking to Ben, the other brewer over there, and I, very, very good friends. We're very close still to this day. We pretty much text every day. We're those dudes.
That's
Nice.
fine.
Yeah.
But no, it's cool. I love that dude. But we're always exchanging information on, new fun things we're doing in the process. And I mean, so while I was there and even after I've left, like little tweaks to the process of things like Rose, like the biggest flagship brand of that beer, just getting those systems dialed in where you're hitting particular numbers the same every time and consistently.
Yeah.
Consistency, you start with brewing beer and then you start moving towards getting your beer consistent every time. So there's little tweaks in the process. I used to use calcium chloride to lower my mash pH. A few people are like, you should try phosphoric acid. A lot more efficient, a lot more, the ratio, it works better and it works more consistently.
Sure.
And it achieves the same thing. So I was like, cool, I'm switching to phosphoric acid.
Yeah.
Because I can dial this in, I can control this better. I know I'll drop like 0.1 pH for about every 30 milliliters of phosphoric acid I throw into this mash. It's not always that, but it's so close that I consider it consistent enough.
Right. Man,
That's more precision than accuracy, but it works and it works well, and I know exactly what I need to do with it. So yes, always.
Cool. No,
always.
that's great info.
Not changing recipes, but getting them consistent and better.
Small tweaks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
having that extra creative and, I guess not partner, but friend in the business where you're both interested in the same thing to only make yourselves better in the end product. I miss that from creative groups whenever I've done some work with projects and stuff in the past. Being able to bounce ideas off and just improve over time. It's just, there's a certain beauty in that, It's almost a community thing that I wish was kind of more of a thing in a way, but at the same time, everyone's got their secrets too, Don't want to give it all out. But.
Well, I mean, I think most of us, especially within the industry, don't really have a lot of secrets. Like the process is the same, and it's very communal. Like a rising tide lifts all ships. Really, it's like craft breweries against the big threes.
Right.
It isn't. But also in this, like Nashville, we have a lot of breweries now, but the market is still not saturated. We're not even close to the kind of number of breweries per capita that like somewhere like Asheville has. And I think we have a lot, but everyone has such a different niche that there's enough room for everyone.
There's still room.
Yeah, and there's nothing there's no reason for us to compete with each other.
Right.
I mean, not too long ago, I realized, I came in on a Monday and we had just blown through a ton of Feast with Friends, my American corn lager.
Oh, cool.
And I was like, crap, I got to brew that this week. And I've got everything but flaked corn. And I'd already had 2 pallets of grain. And I know we're on the radio, but you guys can see, I can't fit much more than 2 pallets of grain back here.
Right, yeah.
And I had 2 full. These are about half, so 40 bags.
They were stacked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I can't. I was like, shoot, all right, well, worst comes to worst, I'll just get in touch with one of my suppliers and I'll eat the shipping charge of having them ship me a 50-pound bag of flake corn, because I use flake corn in that beer. But I was like, first, let me just text everyone I know in town. And
Nice.
Back to Very Sardis, Jeff at Very Sardis got back to me really quickly, and he was like, yeah, I've got corn, man. I'll be here today at this time and tomorrow at this time. I was like, cool, I'll send Clayton over tomorrow.
Oh, that's great.
That's
man.
awesome.
And I was like, just let me know how much it is. I'll bring a check. He was like, nah, man, you'll get me at some point. And then the next day, no joke, he texted me. He was like, hey, before you send Clayton over, I need some wheat. You got wheat? I was like,
Wow.
I was like, I'm always sitting on at least 2 or 3 bags of malted wheat.
Heck yeah.
Absolutely. He'll bring that over. I sent him over some crowlers of the new beers that I had just released too.
You didn't have to wait long to return that favor, did you?
No, and I mean, yeah, and it's I mean, but that's like really common. Like those kind of things are really common, especially when we had that winter storm that destroyed shipping for a while, and now with pandemic and with the fact that not a labor shortage but a proper pay shortage, I guess.
Sure.
There's a lot of industries that are struggling, and a lot of our warehouses, like supplier warehouses and the shipping industry, everything's taking a little bit longer. So we all have some days where we're like, shoot, I'm supposed to brew this day and I'm out of this. And but everyone in this town especially, like, we're all tight knit, happy to share things.
Yeah.
I remember when we first opened up, Jackalope, their old brewer who moved out of town, Josh. Like, we were getting opened up. He's like, hey man, I have a grain sieve if you need to get your mill dialed in. And I was like, absolutely. And he sent me, that dude had the flu and was like sick from work for 3 days and sent me like a very long, very detailed explanation in an email with links.
Oh my
about
gosh.
the proper way to use that grain sieve and the numbers you want to hit based on like research that Breeze Malting had done.
Yeah.
Like, while he was like basically like at home, like just like bedridden.
Wow.
And
machine.
Then I was like, I asked them one day if they had any rice hulls I could buy from them. They're like, listen, we've had like these 7 bags of rice hulls sitting around. When they open up the new facility, that new facility is very advanced and their mash is very efficient, and they actually have no need for rice hulls anymore. They're like, if you come get them and just get them out of your way, you can have them.
Oh.
And I was like, what? I got back here and I was like, all right, who's got a truck?
Yeah.
We're going.
Yes.
So it's just really like,
I love that about the industry.
I mean, it's not codependency, it's interdependency.
Yeah.
And we're all happy to help each other because we all need it every once in a while. And there's no point in not. Like, these are your colleagues. These are people that like whose tap rooms you visit. These are people that you see at Brewers Guild's meetings. These are people that you run into at accounts around town.
Yeah.
These are people that you just happen to see every once in a while, especially at festivals and whatnot.
Yeah.
And why would it, like, how much more fun is it when everyone in your industry is your friend?
Yeah.
Yes. I'll tell you what, it's a lot of fun.
I'll bet.
Man,
That was awesome.
I can't say enough about that Hellas.
That
It was
Hell's Lager,
delicious.
that was super. I had no idea what to expect on that, but it
Yeah.
was like super easy to drink, super clean. It was just, it didn't taste the way it looks either. 'Cause
Right.
It looks super hazy. I say hazy. I mean, that's probably not the best term for it, but I mean, you can't see through it. It's not
Right.
clear, but it tastes amazing. I was sold the minute I saw it on the menu. I was like, I think I want to try that one. I hope I get to drink that tonight.
Yeah, and that's one that I think is kind of weird for people. For me, it's supposed to kind of take the place of like a regular pale ale.
Yeah.
Because it's very much like a pale ale, but it's not.
I can see that.
But it's also, Hellas is one of my favorite styles of beer, and Cascades are one of my favorite hops. So like, I was like, in some ways, like, it's a beer that I feel like is like of my tastes in a lot of ways. Which is one of the main reasons I named it Early Riser. Like, I mean, brewers, bakers, first shifters, like, that's the beer for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Like that's a beer that you can drink at 1 PM when you've been up since 3.
Yeah.
Because
sure.
when you've been up since 3, you're allowed to drink a beer at 1. Everyone's allowed to drink a beer at 1 PM.
Yes.
But when you're up at 3 since 3, it's justified.
Yeah.
But that was kind of like the idea behind that beer was like something that you're drinking early in the afternoon because you've been up all day. You don't want something that puts you to sleep, but you want something that's just gonna like take that edge off.
Yes.
Something nice and refreshing, something to pair with the chicken wings that you're.
Yeah.
You know, I think that
Dude.
beer actually. I think that beer goes really, really, really well with the. I mean, most beers go well with chicken wings. Let's be honest.
True, but
The sauce, like the little bit sweet and a little bit spicy
Yeah.
sauce that we have
Yeah.
on the wings here, I think it goes really well with that.
Yeah.
I might be getting that after here in a
Yeah.
little while.
That's actually
Yeah,
good.
for sure. Actually, hold on a second. I'm gonna grab some sample glasses. I want you guys. I'm gonna pour you some stuff right off the fermenter.
Okay.
I've got a Marzen that we're gonna release in September. That's doing
I'm
real nice. And I'm
Very
really excited
interested
about.
in trying.
Also
that.
made with Riverbend with some Riverbend rye, so North Carolina grown rye.
What? All right. I'm stoked, man.
Yeah. That sounds really good.
Man, so final thoughts on that Hellas, dude.
Oh.
Give us the deets.
So I did not know what to expect coming in here because we don't know what we were going to be trying tonight. You know, it was totally up to him as to what we were going to be drinking.
Yeah.
That Saison, I was a little nervous at first. Super killer. I was like, this is going to be really good. This was probably I totally anticipated it being my favorite beer that I drank from the evening, and I had only had just that at first. That might have taken the cake for me. Like
Wow.
I feel like that Helles Lager was more my speed.
Yeah.
A little bit hoppier, you know, less on the Saison side, but it was more like it looked
Man.
hazy, but it tasted amazing.
That Helles has a lot of personality in it.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's another one of those things where I haven't had that style taste that way in particular anywhere else.
Okay.
Other than here. And it's been a while since I've had like a lineup of that style, but this one took my breath away, man.
Yeah.
Both the Saison and the Helles completely changed what I thought of the styles, coming out of I guess a lager pilsner and then still a hophead kind of mindset.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's I definitely need to go back and branch out to all these styles again because Tennessee's bringing it.
It's weird how you go into this. I mean, because we started this almost 3 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, and where our love for IPAs and stouts, at least mine anyway,
Yeah.
was kind of what took precedence. And then slowly over time, you got into pilsners, and then I started trying sours, and then it was just kind of like, well, that's a weird experience. And now here we are drinking Helles lagers, and now, you know, trying a Marzen. It's just like the palates just kind of open up as you go down this craft beer experience.
And that's what I love about beers I call gateway beers. It's like
Yes.
like you know like your golden ales, like your easygoing beers that like people that are used to drinking your Bud Miller's Coors, but they're like they want to dip their toes in the water. But some people are apprehensive because they had this idea that craft beer is just really high octane with weird ingredients. Kind of, they're like, I want to drink a beer, but I don't want something that is, you know, I don't think I like IPAs because I hear they're bitter or whatever. But a lot of like craft lagers and like easygoing, smooth beers, dip your toes in the water, and then we'll go from there. You know.
What
It's a
about
good
holding,
strategy.
by the way?
So that's our Marzen, aka the Oktoberfest. I got mine in the
Super
tank
cold.
a little late this year, but we're gonna be releasing it. Plans to release it on the vernal equinox. So it's September 21st.
Okay.
Oh, sweet.
We should be releasing. I've talked to our head chef about doing a special like marinated sausage, like special sausage marinated in.
Oh,
in the
dude,
beer.
please do that.
That would be amazing.
Yes.
So it's like a lot of Marzens, I think commercially go for a little bit of the sweeter side because that sells better. Traditionally, they're not supposed to be sweet. Like when I talk about malt character, a lot of people think I mean sweet. Malty means sweet, and there's like a malt sweetness, but malty also means like biscuity, bready, toasty, grainy. And I like that drier, bready, toasty, biscuity character. So there's a lot of that going on in here, but it's also made with that Carolina malted rye. It's a Munich rye, so there's a little bit of sweetness from that, but it's also got this rye malt. For me, is like the ultimate bready character of malt.
Yeah.
But then you get a little bit of black pepper character out of there as well. So this one's dry. It's in its lagering phase, so it's not done yet, but it's tasting really nice.
Ooh. Yeah.
Some days I just want to pour a pint straight off of the fermenter on that one.
Why don't you? This tastes great as it is.
Because I have to save it for all y'all.
Oh my goodness.
Well, in that case, please don't do that.
Yeah. That's smooth
It's
too.
super
man.
bready on the end.
Yeah, and just a light sweetness. There's a little bit of
Yeah.
sweetness in there, but it's not
Oh, that's great.
it's not like sugary caramely sweet. It's just
You-
balanced.
Yeah. You said it wasn't quite ready yet. What are you expecting what are you expecting in change of this between
Well,
now and when it's going to be quote unquote ready?
It's in the lagering period right now,
Oh, okay.
which lagering period is a 6 to 8 week extended cold conditioning period.
Yeah.
It's actually really clean. What I want is to get, as you'll see, there's still some yeast and stuff in suspension. So clearing up, it's gonna refine.
Yeah.
You know, it's just gonna be. There's some of that edge. There's a little sharpness. Some of the flavor characteristics are a little sharp still right now. Some of that edge, those
Fall
edges will be
off
rounded out a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it's really great right now, but I know in September when we release it, it's just going to be nice. It's going to be like a sanded down border wood.
I'll definitely be back for this one.
Yeah,
I don't.
it's really soft too.
I like the.
I like that.
I mentioned kind of like it's real bread, not super bread, but it's like it's the right amount of flavor right at the end that almost tastes. I don't want to say yeasty, but it's more bready kind of. But just a little bit of sweetness. And you're right. Most Marzens that I've had have been overly sweet, and that's kind of what my palate has adjusted to because I'm not huge into Marzens. Not because I don't like them, but because normally they're out one. You know, you have your year rounds, but you know sometimes for the most part they're out once a year, whatever. So you don't get to experience them that often. So my palate is just kind of ignorant to a lot of this stuff. So when I have one and it's overly sweet, I go, oh, okay, so this is what a Marzen is supposed to taste like.
Right.
But this is not overly sweet at the end. It's got just a little bit of sweetness on the finish, bready, and some caramely, caramel to it. And it's the right amount of everything. I think it's tasty.
It's awfully
Thank you.
pillowy to me right now.
You know what? I for the first time the other day used that word to describe a beer. Yeah. And I was like, I was thinking about, I was putting it in, actually in the description of that Saison, I think I was putting it in there. And I stopped for a minute and I was like, I know this is the right word, but does it come across the right way? And I was like, and then I took another sip and I was like, yep.
It is pillowy.
Well, pillowy mouthfeel, like just that soft.
Yeah.
That it's that carbon, that actually that little bit of it's absorbed a little bit of CO2 in the tank as it, you don't want to crash the tank without head pressure on it, because that creates negative pressure in a closed off system. Which, if just Google collapsed fermenters on
collapsed fermenters.
Yeah. Sometimes so when you have a closed vessel and you increase temperature, you increase the pressure. When you have a closed vessel and you decrease the temperature, you make negative pressure. If you make enough negative pressure, you can actually make a tank fold in on itself.
We need a video compilation of that with set to some sort of song. That'd be interesting.
If we can't find something, we have to find somebody willing to do that.
Yeah,
I don't think that's going to happen though.
I'm sure you can find some. There's plenty of pictures. There are, I mean, a lot of brewers that work at commercial breweries and stuff that have had that happen. They will take pictures and post them online and laugh at themselves as we all laugh with them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like everyone makes simple mistakes. It's just sometimes simple mistakes can be detrimental, and it's not about that you made a mistake. It's about being able to like learn from it. And if other people can learn from your mistake, and as we were talking about earlier, how much we like to share information in this industry, being like, hey, I did this stupid thing. This is the result. This is just a reminder to double check X, Y, and Z so you don't do this stupid thing too.
It's like Mr.
Knowledge is
Rogers
power.
reminding everybody. Yeah.
So there's a lot of that out there as well. But
Well, Mitch, before we probably take a rinse break, what's your thought on that Marzen?
I enjoy that pillowiness right now,
The
man.
pillowiness.
I want to see that through to the end. For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
I think this is so late September.
September 21st.
September 21st.
That's the plan. The vernal equinox.
Okay, got it.
I thought it was pretty appropriate.
That sounds like an
Definitely.
appropriate time to bring that out. I thought that was, it was super tasty. Again, my palate is not, I'm not an expert when it comes to Marzens, but something like this definitely would allow me, it would want me to keep trying it further and further, and something, if I had something like this, and it tastes great on a hot day too.
Right.
It's like, sometimes you think about these as kind of like more towards the fall season when it's starting to get a little bit cooler, or at least not 90 fucking degrees outside. And sweating your ass off. But at the same time, this works. We're sitting in the back room of a brewery, and it's a little bit humid, and it's hot, but this works
As expected.
Yeah, as expected. And I drank it, and this wasn't heavy to me. It seems to work. So this has me looking for more of this style.
Yeah, and actually, traditionally, a lot of Marzens are released in like July and August.
Oh, okay.
Part of that is
Well, there you go then.
part of that is Oktoberfests are actually never really released in October.
Right. Yeah.
The name is kind of a misnomer. The other part of it is Sam Adams seems to release theirs earlier every year, and we all have to like we don't want people to get tired of them before
Right.
we release ours.
Right.
So everyone just kind of has to keep up with that trend as well. The first Marzen I did last year, it was different than this one, but I did a Marzen last year, and like I was talking to guys at Black Abbey, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're releasing Chronicles on this day," and I was like, "I'm gonna release mine 2 days before that."
There you go.
just for fun. Just
Yeah.
I mean, it was not to be. I wasn't trying to be mean, but I was just like, "Haha, fuck you guys, I'm gonna beat you." But it was released super early, and people were kind of like, "What's going on here?" And I'm just like, "No, this is what we do." And you know, I mean, most of the people involved in this business are restaurateurs, not brewers, so they don't necessarily know what those trends are. And even the customers were like, I don't know, it's good, but I'm not ready for it. So I put when I kegged it off, I put a little bit aside that we released in October and went through in 3 days.
Oh
Wow.
my
Because
gosh.
because
that's
people
wild.
were ready.
Yeah.
They were
Yeah.
like, oh, it's an Oktoberfest. It's October. Let's go.
Might as well drink it in October.
Thanks,
Which
marketing.
which
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, which is fine. Like, you know, I'm in the business selling beer, so whatever sells
Right,
beer,
right.
I'm good with at this point. But yeah, I think September will be a good time, and I think since we're not competing out in like grocery stores, and we have a few accounts around town, and we're gonna get a few more, but really distribution is not the model of this place.
Right.
So we don't necessarily have that competition. We're basically just like people coming in wanting to drink stuff like.
Sit down and have some food while you're at it too, right?
Yeah. We don't have to worry about like, oh well, you know, 100 other breweries already had Marzens on the shelf by the time we got ours on the shelf.
Right.
We'll get ours when we get it.
Yeah.
People will come by and drink it. The city has been very kind to us. They've received us very well,
Good.
especially when we were like slinging pizzas and crowlers through a freaking window
Yeah.
Wild.
for like
man,
the first
wild.
few months. Like that's all we were doing. That's the only thing we could do. But man, we had like, there were times where we had so many people waiting to come up and order or come get their stuff that we had to actually like have them spread out in front of the building.
Wow.
Because it was early on in COVID, and we could have like our city council member was here one day, and he was like, "Hey guys, like just so you know, there's a lot of people here, and this could possibly be something that somebody could be like, hey, you could get dinged for this because of a gathering." Even
Right.
though it wasn't, like it was just people were there to everyone. A lot of people eat lunch at the same time. A lot of people eat dinner at the same time.
Yeah.
But Nashville and Donaldson especially showed up for us so hard. It almost gave us an additional problem, but it wasn't, and everyone was really cool about it, and everyone's been really great about everything. Like a lot of people would grab their stuff, and they were basically just like tailgating in our parking lot, and we're just like, all right,
Hell
cool.
yeah.
Like as long as we don't, like, you know,
Yeah.
as long as you guys are happy, and as long as we don't have to close this place down, like go for it. It was
Yes.
great. I can't say not like. I don't know. I think Donaldson is one of those neighborhoods that still has a lot of that old Nashville feel to it, and like supporting whatever local business is opening up is like one of those very old Nashville things, and Donaldson like holds that pretty hard, and they're
Sure.
like really good about that.
That's good to hear.
So-
Yeah.
I like hearing that. I really do.
Man.
What do you think, Mitch?
I guess it's time for that rinse break.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be right back.
Rinse break.
And we're back.
Quick rinse break there.
Got a beer in my hand.
I'm a little nervous about this one, to be honest.
We all got beers in our hand. So
What
so
do we
this-
got here? What are we working with,
This
Chad?
purplish pinky looking son of a gun is it's a Goza. We do kettle souring here because we do not have the proper space to do a proper souring program.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with kettle sours. I like kettle sours, and it allows me to put out beers that people want to drink and not infect my entire brewery. I always try to source my lacto. So the kettle sour, you sour in the kettle overnight using lacto. Lactobacillus works at a higher temperature, usually pitch it around 100 to 120 degrees. And it'll sour the beer in the kettle overnight, and then you boil it real quick the next morning, and then it kills everything. It kills all the bugs.
Ah, okay.
And since all the bugs are killed, you can put it in a fermenter, and you're not, you're not infecting your whole brewery. Lacto does not have a very lacto does not have a heat tolerance over 120 degrees. So generally, what I'll do is there's a lot of lactobacillus naturally on the outside of grain.
Okay.
So I'll take a week or two before. I'll take a container fill it up with a few different kinds of grain, and then when I'm knocking out a beer, put that wort on top of that, and then let that just kind of like sit out. I sit it on my shelf, over one of my grain shelves over here, and let it just do its thing, and it naturally sours and propagates that lacto. I also will get I get a lacto pitch from my yeast guys down at Bootleg Biology. Quick shout out to Bootleg Biology, local Nashville yeast lab, doing great work. They supply all my yeast. They're great guys. They're doing a lot. They're working themselves to death right now. They're
Killer
doing a
name,
great
by the
job.
way.
Yeah, great name.
Yeah.
Literally, like one of their bumper stickers is "Support your local dreg dealer."
That's awesome. That is awesome.
I need one of those.
Yeah.
I'll talk to Jeff. I might be able to hook that up.
That's awesome.
But he has a lacto blend that I like, so I'll get a little bit of that from him. Use the stuff I propagated, and then I'll use a liberal amount of acidulated malt to bring the mash pH down as well.
Oh.
So you get that lower pH souring process through 3 or 4 different sources. And I think for me, what that does is creates a kettle soured beer that has a little more than maybe 2 dimensions as opposed to 1. This one I did with kaffir lime leaves in the whirlpool, and then post fermentation blackberry puree post fermentation, and then of course with a kettle with a goza sea salt and coriander are all part of it. The sea salt should not come across as salty, more so to create like a umami sort of briny kind of character to it. It's an old style German beer. A number of years ago, like 4 or 5 years ago, it started having a resurgence out in market, which I couldn't have been happier about, because they're really great. They're very low ABV beers generally, and so they're like a really great summer beer. They lend themselves well to spicing and fruiting as well.
Oh yeah.
And good for hot weather.
Yes, very good for hot
weather.
weather. So
I'm gonna dive in
Yeah,
here.
let's take a sip.
The nose is ever so light.
yeah, it's actually a really light beer overall. And you
Ooh,
get
I like
that,
that.
you get that tart fruity blackberry character up front,
Yeah.
but then
Yeah.
it finishes out like have you ever taken a shot of tequila and then bit into a lime afterwards?
Yeah.
That character of like biting into the lime
There's
afterwards.
something that kind of like stays with you just for a second.
It just like that lime character lingers, and I think that's what's like the crown jewel of this beer is that kaffir lime character in it, and the fact that it's like a purplish pink color always lends itself well to social media posts and things like that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And it gets people interested. They're like, "What's that? What's that weird color thing that you're drinking like a beer?" And it's like, "Oh, it is a beer.
It is a beer.
Yeah. But yeah, I think, and like I was saying, like I had mentioned earlier, the idea literally came from watching the Great British Baking Show with my parents.
Oh man.
So
What's the
shout
ABV on
out
this
to
one?
Scott and Sharon Mueller, mom and dad. What up?
There you go.
God.
What's the ABV on this one? You said these are typically lighter on the ABV
Yeah,
side.
this one's like 4.5%.
I'm sorry,
It's like 4.5%.
4.5. Okay.
Yeah.
This is awesome. I could I almost want to get the GA or not GABF, that's a different thing, but the Greatest British Cook-Off thing bakery. I want them to pair this with what you saw on TV. You know, I want to see that.
Mix
That'd
this
be
with
amazing.
was it a blackberry tart?
Yeah, it was a blackberry lemon tart.
Lemon tart.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, blackberry and like lemons and limes are great. I like both of them.
Yeah.
But also, I think a good point of that though is that it does pair very well with desserts. It's dry and fruity and citrusy, so you have like that sour citrusy characteristic that comes through will help cut through and kind of balance out like the sweetness of something like a cheesecake.
Yeah.
Or like like a piece of pie or whatever.
Right.
Like imagine this is like a piece of apple pie or like a blackberry pie. Like why not create harmony through similar flavors as opposed to contrast, whatever.
Totally.
But it also lends itself well to pairing with like lighter fare, as far as like salads and fruit and things like that. Like it will go well with a lot of those things. Which down here at TennFold Brewing, we do all those kinds of food items as well. So come on down and pair some beers with some food.
I want to mention something about this beer in particular. So, Mitch knows this a lot. I typically don't go for sour beers. It's been a turnoff for me, and that's kind of the back and forth banter we have on the show from time to time. Is oh, let's give Richard a shitload of sours and let's see what he does. And I've been surprised, right? We've had a couple of different ones on the show where I go, okay, well, this isn't too bad. But kind of going back before any of this started, before Mitch and I even started getting into this whole rhythm, I would go, and we talked about this before we got on the show, but like Thursday is typically the day that I have something that I've never tried before. So New Brew Thursday, right? So at my last job, I'd have a few coworkers and myself. We would always go to our local beer joint during lunch. We'd go have lunch, and then we go to like a liquor store or a beer store, and we'd each buy a 4-pack or a 6-pack or whatever, and then we kind of like split, split beers or whatever. So we had something different, 3 or 4 different beers to take home with us for that week. And got to know the guy that ran the beer, the beer manager there, and he picked up on the fact that I don't like sours. And his goal was to get me to like sours because he liked them. And he goes, Richard, I'm gonna give you something every week. And he would give me, whatever was on tap. He would give me 2 different sours, and I would kind of say, okay, I hate this one, and I hate this one less. So he would know to start here on the spectrum, right? And then whenever he gets something new in, he'd say, okay, this is what I got. He was very good at dialing into what he thinks I would like. And shout out to him. He's super good at understanding what I like from like an IPA and a stout. But he could never find something in a sour that I just went, you know what? I would be willing to buy that. I would be willing to buy this.
Very cool.
This is super killer. Like I did not expect, again, full disclosure, did not expect to like this beer because it's a sour and it comes out and I go, I don't know. But the minute you said, kettle sour goes, I went, okay, I've had that before. We talked with Living Waters. We talked with Ryan and, they had their Goza can release. And I went, that's a kettle sour Goza. And I go, and I didn't hate that one. In fact, I really liked one. So there might be a chance for this. This is really good. Like, well, I actually like this a lot.
I think what you're touching on there is something that we kind of talked about a little bit earlier, especially when I mentioned that, oh, this is tart but not sour comment.
Yeah.
The term sour beer is so all-encompassing, and I think a lot of people don't understand where the history from that comes. And sour beer can be a lot of things. They can be very funky, long-term aged, and there's a lot of different yeast and bacteria that you can use to sour beer that give a lot of different characters. Even like Brettanomyces, for example, there's 3 different strains of Brettanomyces. One of them comes across very much as like hay and like wet blanket and wet horse blanket. Like
very familiar.
There's one strain that comes across very like leathery, and there's another strain that comes across very like tart cherry kind of character.
Oh.
Then there's Lactobacillus and Pediococcus that make like that more traditionally tart sour character. Lactobacillus is what you will use in a kettle sour. Pediococcus does not have a very high ABV tolerance, and it does not have a high heat tolerance. But different places are going to make whatever they're describing a sour beer as, it's going to be a different thing.
Yeah.
Like if you go down, like we talked about, we mentioned Brique earlier. The stuff that Brique is doing, like that natural wild fermented, like there's a similar flavor characteristic to all his barreled wild beers because he just has this house yeast strain that's like in the air, which is traditional for a lot of places that are doing like cool ships, where they like knock their wort out into an open, shallow open vat, let it cool down overnight, and then the bugs that are naturally just like collected in the woodwork and stuff of this room, because it's hard to get rid of those things.
Yeah.
They inoculate that beer, and then they, that brewery will take that beer and they'll put it in barrels, they'll put it in a fermentation vessel or whatever. Russian River does it, Prairie does it. There's a few really great breweries around in the U.S. that are doing cool ships. But that characteristic, that super funky characteristic, is different than what a lot of us that don't have the time or space or ability to do those beers are doing when we have a sour beer, which is kettle souring. Not as, it's like I was saying earlier, like a little more 1 to 2 dimensional.
Right.
So I think it's not that you don't like sour beers. I think there's a particular kind of soured beer. There's a particular quality of what is sour is what you're looking for. And it sounds like you're looking more for that tart, fruity sort of character.
Yes.
As opposed to that like funkier, more wild, like, you know, balanced in a different way sort of character.
I'm glad
Yeah.
you mentioned that because it always seems like every one that I've had, and we joke, you know, oh, it's tart, but it's not sour. But that's kind of when I drink something like this, and when we had the other ones that I went, you know what, this is actually really good.
Yeah.
They haven't been those funky, to me, sour. Excuse me. Tart, I don't mind. You know,
Yeah.
sour to me is just it's kind of a turnoff. So to me personally, this kind of hits that level, right, where it's not over the top where I go, woo, you know, it doesn't make you pucker up,
Yeah.
but also at the same time, it's not just barely there. It's noticeable, but it doesn't kick you in the face. It's easy drinking.
It's smooth.
And I think this situation I'm about to talk about is few and far between. I think most places don't do this, and I don't know anyone around town that does this, but I definitely have in my time being into beer. Some people will have a batch that's bad and they're afraid to dump it,
Yeah.
and they'll just label it as a sour beer, and it's just a beer that went bad that they should have dumped down the drain.
Really?
I mean, it happens. Like, I mean, money. When it comes down to money and thinking about like, when it comes down to the bottom line, and maybe you're new or you're struggling or you've gone through a hard time or whatever, there's a lot of reasons people might do it. Sometimes it's like, I mean, and I've seen this before. I've watched brewers convince themselves there's nothing wrong with the beer that there's definitely something wrong with, because they don't want something to be wrong with it.
Right.
And it's not, and this is why tasting panels and blind tastings and things like that are really important in this industry. Like, I'm very big on like going up and just like handing someone a beer, being like, drink this, and they're like, what is it? And I'm just like, it's beer. Like,
Yes.
just drink it. Tell me what you're tasting. Tell me what you're feeling, because I know my palate's my palate, but my palate's not everyone else's. I know what I'm
Right.
sensitive to. I know what I have a low threshold for, but other people might have a better handle on other things.
True.
Or less of a handle on other things. So, but I think sometimes people will release, and again, I don't think this happens often, but sometimes, you know, whether it's a bottom line thing or you just really want to, or you made some promises maybe that you feel like you can't take back.
Right.
Because you hyped up this beer you're about to release and something went wrong. I think sometimes people will, a beer that has quality control issues, they'll just be like, it can be a sour beer. Because why not? And that's not the approach I think that should be taken. And I think that's an approach that very few people take.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it does happen. So that also might spoil, like, pun intended, people's perception
Yeah.
on what the definition of a sour beer is.
Right.
And the problem with that is just like, it's like saying like, oh, I don't like lagers. It's like, well, you're just saying that you don't like half of what beer is.
Right.
You know,
Right.
because it goes beer, then it's lager and ale, and then it's all the styles between that.
Yes.
So I think part of that is, a lot of people that just came from a homebrewing experience and like didn't get out of that homebrewing mindset, and they just opened breweries. I was very lucky before they hired me on to run this beer program. I was very lucky that I had been in a place that I worked out a long time, that taught me things, that allowed me to grow, that helped me, anywhere I wanted to take it and anything I wanted to learn. The guys at Black Abbey were like, yeah, like I started out bartending there. And they knew that I eventually wanted to work back at house, and then eventually I was splitting between back and front of house. And then they were like, yeah, you want to come back house permanently? I was like,
Nice.
yeah, I want to learn a brew system. Like, I'll do the filter and I'll do all the cleaning, but I want to learn that brew system. And eventually I learned the brew system. Then I was doing most of the, as Ben started going more towards like canning, like running canning lines and things like that, I was trying to take care of as much of the brewing as I could. And then running that pilot system, because we had a good pilot system. And then I was like, we've got this beer engine. Like, I want to start doing more casks. And I was running the filter. And they're like, well, fine, we'll buy casks. Like, go for it,
Oh,
If you can make it work, we'll make it work. So they were really good about not just like training me and letting me ease my way into it. Like, basically, I was a paid intern for a while. But they were also really good with, like, listening and being like, all right, if that's what you want to learn, or that's what you want to do, we're going to do it. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But, let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
And that's something that I try to carry with me here as well. It's like, all right, I'm going to try this thing. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But we need to give it a shot. Or, now that I have my wonderful assistant, Clayton.
Shout out Clayton.
When he does some of the cellar work and some of the cleaning, he does things a little differently. And I'm just like, listen, if you get the same results, I don't care how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
But these are the results I need. But I'm not here to tell you that there's one right or wrong way to do it. This is the way I do it.
Yeah.
If you've got a way that's more efficient for you, that does things the right way. And that's something I learned working under John over at Black Abbey. He was always very receptive to, for the most part. Sometimes, depending on the week or how busy things were, obviously you can't always take the time. But more often than not, he's very receptive to hey, I've been trying this thing and it seems to be working and it makes X, Y, and Z more efficient. So can we explore that and making that new SOPs or whatever? And he was always really good about okay, well, let's sit down and talk about it. Let's figure out how this works, what the results are. And if it works, it works. As long as the results are the same and you're being more efficient, because I was also hourly then.
Oh, yes. Yes.
But I mean, it still stands that the important part is the result, not how you get there. And if you can get there in an efficient way that saves resources or saves time, then let's get there and let's do it.
That's a plus.
So I tried to carry a lot of that with me here, running this place as well. Just that thought of if beer's bad, dump it. There's nothing worth a short term making some money back on some beer that's not good is not worth long term the ruining of your reputation by releasing bad beer.
Exactly.
And also, I've learned that you can convince yourself any beer is good and worth releasing, so you need some outside perspective.
Definitely.
And outside perspective is not wrong. It's that person's perspective, and you're only asking them because you need and want it.
Yeah.
So you have dumped beer before?
Oh,
Dumped
totally.
it entire.
Totally.
Wow.
Not too much here, but there are certain things that didn't hit quality control, or there was an issue early on that one of my head pressure regulators on one of the bright tanks wasn't working, and so I ended up having the head pressure up really high, so it absorbed way too much CO2. So it was just pure foam.
Yeah.
And it was a hoppy beer, so even if you pull all the head pressure off and let it naturally degas, what you're doing is you're driving all those delicate aromatics out of that beer.
Oh.
So by the time it was to the carbonation level that you could pour it, it just wasn't. It wasn't flat as in carbonation, but it was flat as in flavor.
Yeah.
Right.
And it just wasn't worth it. And it was just it's got to go down the drain. The second batch of beer I brewed here, a couple things went wrong on the brew system because it was a brand new brew system, and it just wasn't hitting spec. And I was like, this is not what this beer is supposed to be. This one's going down the drain.
Yeah.
How far into that process are you when you know that?
It depends. It could be at any point in the process.
Yeah.
One of them was once fermentation, during fermentation, I was like, I don't think this is going to turn
This
out.
is not going to happen.
Post fermentation and crashing, it still wasn't working out, so we dumped it. The other one was fine, but I had an equipment issue. Ended up making the beer overcarbed, and you can't pour glasses of foam.
Right.
So we just had to dump it. I had another beer that was it came out it was just a one-off, and it came out not at all like I expected, especially with the way I brewed it.
Huh.
And I was like, okay, this isn't what I wanted, but there is a market out here that wants to drink this. But it ended up just moving really slow. I needed tank space. We had sold enough of it and there were enough people that liked it. There were a lot of people that didn't. And I had servers warning. I'm telling all the servers, you need to be clear with people what this beer is and the demographic that it's geared towards.
Right.
Because I want people that the important thing is for people to get the beer they want, not necessarily the beer they're ordering.
Right.
So understanding what they're ordering.
That's a statement right there.
Yeah. Is really important, especially in a place like this that we do most of our sales in house. But that one, it moves so slow that there's a point, a number of months down the line where you're losing hop quality, you're losing characteristics. It's just again becoming kind of flat flavor wise. And sometimes you need tank space, you need lines.
Definitely.
And it's on that one, we had sold enough that I didn't feel bad dumping it, but I needed space.
Right.
I needed space. It was moving slow. It had to go.
Yeah.
It wasn't a complete waste then.
No,
I mean, you still got
not
something out of
at
it.
all, not
Yeah.
at all. There were a lot of people that really liked that beer, and there were a lot of. I mean, there was a love or hate it beer.
Yeah.
But the quality control wise, there was nothing wrong with it. It just didn't turn out like I expected. But I was also kind of doing some spring cleaning, and I was like, "Oh, you look like you'll go good with this, and you'll go good with this." And I mean, I literally added all my hops at Whirlpool at 170 degrees,
Yeah.
and that thing was like one of the most bitter beers I've ever brewed.
Oh, man.
And there should have been no bitterness to that thing at all. It was wild. And some of the hops I used were some Chinook hops grown in Michigan.
Oh, okay.
And I love Chinook hops, and Chinook hops grown in Michigan are different because hops have terroir. But it had this like weird, crazy, like minty aftertaste, like from the Chinook hops out of it.
Oh, wow.
It was weird. Like there were things I really appreciated about that beer.
Yeah.
It wasn't my favorite beer, but I was like, I know there's a demographic of people that will want to drink this.
Definitely.
But then there's a point where beer does go bad. Beer does have a shelf life. We're lucky here that we go cold to cold. We keep everything cold for the most part.
Yeah.
Since we're doing everything in house, so it lasts a little bit longer. But there's a point where you need space. You need to move other things. You need to keep up on one-offs and year-rounds. And dollars to donuts, sometimes it's just worth dumping something that's moving slow.
I mean, that makes sense, and I hate to see it go, but at the same time.
It makes room for things like this goza we're drinking.
Exactly.
Which, by the way, the first goza I've ever finished.
Really?
I want to put that on record.
Whoa,
Yeah, right?
okay.
Yeah, that was the first goza
I'm gonna add that
I've
to the
ever-
description
Yeah.
on tap.
Yes.
It's tart
This-
but not sour, and it's the first goza that Rich has ever finished.
You have permission to use my name, by the way, if you want to do that.
Perfect.
This it is tart but not sour, and you'll probably finish it.
Yeah.
Richard,
No, you will finish.
you
it.
will finish.
You will
it.
finish
Yeah.
it.
No, that was good. Recapping on that one real quick. I like the taste on it. The blackberry is really good. I definitely get the lime on the end. I'm curious because you said your inspiration for this one was kind of the blackberry lemon tart. So I'm sure there's a part of you that wants to see what it's like if you used lemon instead. But I think the lime worked great because like it just stays with you a little bit, but it disappears relatively quickly too.
Yeah.
So it's the last thing I tasted, and I was like, "Oh, that's good. It's really tasty." And then it's gone, and I was like, "Okay, I should take another sip then to try to see." And before I knew it, I was halfway through it, and then 3/4 of the way through it, and then before I knew it, I actually beat Mitch
Yeah, you did.
in finishing the beer. And Mitch enjoys sours, so
Oh, yeah, that
the
thing
fact
was
that
bomb.
A, I finished it, and B, I drank it before somebody that typically enjoys sours finished his, I think is a testament to how you brewed that beer. So I'd give it a thumbs up. It's really solid.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I guess I am a little curious how it would be with lemon, but I think lemon would be a little different because using the kaffir lime leaves, they're different than like using just lime peel or lemon peel
Yeah.
or lime or lemon puree. And between limes and lemons, limes are my jam.
Yeah.
And so when it was like a blackberry lemon tart, but I immediately started thinking like, especially with beer, I think the lime character in beer goes better. It's got this like particular sharpness about it that's a little different than lemons. I think lemons have like a bit more like oomph flavor wise, and limes have a little bit more sharpness. So my decision very early on was going to be like, I'm going to do lime somehow because I think lime in a goza, that sharpness of the lime, that less oomph on
Yeah.
citrus character, while it's still there, would work really well with the sour beer.
It's definitely there, and it cuts it a little bit on the palate and gives you that nice sharp kind of acidity that just lightly fades off. It's a nice feathering, if you will, of the palate.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put
Feathering.
that one in my back
Yeah.
pocket.
Mitch is really good with the adjectives.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
pillowy and
you must
feathery.
sleep on down.
Yeah. Mitch
It all
sounds tired
comes
right
together.
now.
Well, after a few beers, we all might get sleepy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Luckily, I had a nap before I came back to work, so I'm raring. I'm coming in late tomorrow.
It's funny the whole porch pounder thing, or like kind of like the early riser
Yeah.
beer, right? I was up at 2:30 this morning. I've got a kid who's 18 months old. It's our first, so it's kind of like there's no playbook to any of this, and he's finally sleeping through the night, which is great. But for whatever reason, my dad instinct woke me up at 2:30. I'm checking my phone, my camera, make sure my kid's doing all right. My dog Nitro is asleep and nothing's wrong. My wife is next to me, she's sleeping. I'm like, why the hell am I awake? And why the fuck can I go back to sleep? So I just laid there, and then I got up, and I was like, all right, well, I'll surf Instagram or whatever and check the news or whatever. And before I knew it, it was 5:45 in the morning, and it was time to get up. So I have literally been up since 2:30 this morning.
Nah.
And the whole like early riser thing for me worked out because, like you said, you're up early.
Yeah.
Wasn't brewing beer by any means, but I was up early, so it counts.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, and that beer is, you know, an homage to not just brewers but everyone. Like we have a bakery. We make all our pizza dough and a lot of our bread products in house, and you know, the person that does the bakery, like they're in here. They're in here on hours that nobody should ever fucking be awake.
Really?
Oh, man.
Because, well, that's every bakery though. I
Yeah.
mean,
It's
so-
very true. My
yeah.
wife was a baker for 2-3 years.
so you know.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So that's why I mean, like bakers, brewers, first shifters.
Yeah.
You know, I remember when I lived out in the San Francisco Bay Area. You know, sometimes I'd be walking to work and there would be people like in bars at like 8 a.m, and I was always like, I don't even
Drinking.
know if I could drink that early.
Yeah. Right.
And this girl I was seeing at the time was like, well, you do realize those are the people that got off of work at like 7. And I was like, I never thought about that, you
Huh.
know? I mean, I guess in some senses they're the late risers, but because they're third shifters, but still, I think there's a special place in my heart for the people that are working in these off hours, making things happen that we're all taking advantage of.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so that
True.
beer is kind of an appreciation to all those folks, as well as just like this one's for you. It's a weird life.
Yeah.
It's a weird life working off hours, and sometimes it can be hard, sometimes it can be lonely. But you know, come on down to TennFold, and we have a beer for you that can help with all those terrible feelings. I'm just kidding.
Well, this one will.
yeah.
I mean, it's awesome.
It was really good.
It'll brighten your day, but it's all those things you don't think about that need to get done while you're sleeping.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
I used to work in the restaurant industry, and you know, and everything. We'd come in as a server. I'd come in at 3 o'clock and be like, all right, I'm ready to serve late lunch and serve dinner or whatever. And these guys would be in the kitchen, you know, and they were there since like, now granted it's not 3 or 4 in the morning, but it's 6 o'clock and 7 o'clock, and you're going, why are they here so early? Like, we don't even open till 3. It's like, well, how the fuck are we supposed to get our fresh food ready
yeah.
in time for lunch and dinner at open time? Like, the
Work is
people are
insane.
required to be there to do that grunt work
Yeah.
so that people can have dinner at 4 o'clock, and if you want something to be fresh.
Yeah.
So I've seen that before. Unfortunately, haven't had to do it too many times. I am in IT, so there are times when I'm up at 1 or 2 in the morning
Right.
fixing problems, you know. But it's in my head, and it's
Yeah.
on a keyboard with ones and zeros. There's
Well,
no physical labor involved, but I am there.
It's a discovery that no one thinks about because
Yeah.
they haven't had to go through it themselves or have people around them talk about it. There should be more exposure for the people who do the labor for us. It's one of those things.
Gotcha.
I wish we knew more, you know.
Yeah,
But America, man,
that's right.
Well, you know, and it's
it's a
hard
bummer
to.
subject.
Well, I think it's just. I think we all do it. It's kind of like an out of sight, out of mind mentality, but it's also about not always understanding. Like, if those things are working really well, you don't have to know how they're working because
True.
they're working really well. You know, it's like that adage that, like, if you're doing a great job, nobody knows you're doing your job.
Right.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
And just trust somebody that it's getting done.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, things like, you know, like water treatment plants and stuff like that, like they need people there all the time.
That's true.
Um,
That's true.
But
Never thought about that.
I don't
Yeah.
think it's that we take it for granted. I think it's that they're doing their job so well that we don't have to think about it and worry about it.
Right.
And I
That's
think
very
that's a
true.
blessing. It's
Yeah.
definitely a blessing. But I also, you know, it's kind of my way to honor those folks that are working weird hours like I work. You know,
Right. Yeah.
I call them, you know, like not normal people hours.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I get in here at 6 o'clock and I'm out by 2, somewhere between 2 and 3,
Yeah.
you know, nobody else I know other than people in the brewing industry are like done at that time or
Right.
off. And sometimes those people aren't even off at that time. Like, there's a lot of commercial breweries, big production breweries are working in shifts. Like at Black Abbey, when if we were turning 4 brews in a day, we would have like basically 3 shifts of brewing. Someone would come in at 4 in the morning, someone would leave at 11.
Wow.
But we would also knock 4 brews out in an entire day.
Right.
We would fill up one, we had a couple 90 barrel tanks there and a 20 barrel system.
Yeah.
So you have to brew 4 times to fill those up.
Goodness.
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
I mean, it was, but there's also something. I think there's something really delightful about that early time in the morning, though, too. And I noticed this like when I was working in San Francisco. Occasionally, I'd get to the office and like, this was pre-brewing days. I get to the office and like start getting set up, and my boss then was just like, I don't care when you come in, just as long as the work gets done on time, and that's the kind of environment I thrive in.
Right.
Because I just don't sleep well, and I never have, so I'm always up early. It's just like go to work and knock it out.
Yeah.
So sometimes I get into work and start getting things going, and then like go to get some coffee or like grab a bagel or something down the street. And you could I was in the middle of the financial district in downtown San Francisco, and I could just like stand on the street and just slowly, or like look out a window from a building and just slowly watch the city come alive. Like there's nothing for a while, and then all of a sudden you see some birds flying around, there's a couple extra cars, then you see a few people walking through,
Yeah.
and there's more cars, then the sun's coming up, there's tons more people, and then all of a sudden it's like 8:30 and it's just like
Rush hour. Yeah.
and everyone,
wild.
it's really special being able, especially out there, like in one of the busiest cities in the United States, like just being able to stand there at times and just watch the place go from nothing to coming to life.
Yeah.
So I think that's also an appreciation I have for the early morning times, watching the sunrise. Sometimes, when I'll get in here and start a brew growing, and once I get the mash going in and have everything set up where I've got a breather moment, like, go outside, check on like glycol chiller and stuff like that, but also just stand outside and appreciate that time of day when everything is still
Yeah.
and everything is silent.
That's beautiful, man.
Good analogy. I don't know. What do you think, Mitch? Do you think now we brought a bottle share that
We
we're
did.
going to have kind of for the lightning round? Do you
Sure.
think we might have time for one more in between that?
Yeah. Let's have another pour or something and get into that one.
What do you think? Are you
Alright.
good? Are
You
good with
guys,
that?
yeah. What are you thinking? You direct me and give me a style. Give me a style.
All right.
Go ahead, Mitch. That's you.
Well, we haven't had too many hop-heavy things, so do you feel like
Okay. I think I could go for a hop-heavy thing.
You want classic West Coast or you want hazy?
I haven't had too many hazies recently.
hazy? It is.
All right.
So, I've got this this new hazy. I call it the 808 clap
Yeah.
because just as synthesizers were a very inventive thing a long time ago,
Yes.
and they're ubiquitous in music these days, so is the Hazy IPA in
Sweet.
the brewing industry.
Let's go with that then.
So it's also it's super fruity, and 808 is the area code of Honolulu, Hawaii. So
Oh man,
double
I
meaning.
knew I
Yeah.
knew I recognized it. Yeah.
Heck yeah,
That
man.
sounds great. Yeah, I think that's kind of I'm glad that we're able, before we move over into like a super heavy stout, because I've had what you've brought before. I don't know if I've had that variant, but I have had a Language of Thunder before, and they're super heavy on the stout side. But before you get into that one, it's probably best to go as hoppy as you're going to get before you jump into that. And we've had quite a few styles today. We've
Yes.
had Hell's Lagers, we've had Saisons, or I should say in different order, and then for Saison, a Hell's Lager, and then from there we moved into a Marzen, and then we had
Goza.
a Goza, which I'm again surprised as
Dude.
hell that I really enjoyed and beat you to the punch on
Yes,
finishing
yes.
it. It almost seems like an IPA or like a hazy, something more hop forward, whether it's a pale ale and IPA, is the way to go before you jump into something as heavy as like an imperial
Yeah.
stout.
Very true. That was kind of what was on my mind when choosing a style this time. Being put on the spot,
No, I get, but I'm really glad you
Yeah.
chose it because I was getting ready to jump in and
Yeah.
pick a style.
Yeah.
Had you not, so I'm really glad you chose the IPA because that's really what I was hoping we were going to go for.
I'm digging it, dude. Everything we've had so far,
Favorite one so far.
Shit.
Talk about putting somebody on the spot.
I really like that Goza, but that Hellas was something. It was.
Yeah. I think
that Helles was a hell yeah for me.
Hells
It's
yeah.
number one right
it was
now.
a hells yeah.
It's a number one. Then I'm gonna go Goes On, the second one.
Okay.
So, what leaves third. So
Yeah. I think if
that
I
Marzen too. It's coming up.
yes.
It's gonna be good.
That Marzen was super tasty. You know, he talked about it's got a little bit more time to kind of round off those edges. I'm very curious, and we're going to have to come back and do that because I thought it was very good the way it was.
Yes.
But if he says that it's going to be rounded off just a little bit more, then I'm definitely willing to come back and get that one. Oh, those look really hazy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
this
it
is
is.
Thank you, Chad.
So this is a blend of El Dorado, Azaka, and Barbe Rouge hops.
Barbe Rouge.
Barbe Rouge is a Barbe Rouge
Yeah.
is a it's actually a French hop.
It's a French. Yeah.
Oh,
okay,
yeah, a while ago, Strusselspot was pretty much like the only French hop for a long time, and they started grafting Strusselspot with different American hops and coming up with like Triskel and Barbe Rouge. Barbe Rouge has this nice, like really, really nice berry character to
Yeah.
it, but it also retains a lot of that like nice, noble, grassy character.
Oh.
And then El Dorado and Azaka are just like your fruit bomb, New Zealand, like
I will say my
pineapple-y hops.
My
Heck yeah.
venture into El Dorado hops. I actually had a single hop El Dorado IPA from a brewery in Asheville, Bramari Brewing. That was like the first time I had ever had El Dorado hops, and I'd never heard of them before. And I was like, "Oh, it's a single hop. It's a single hop beer. It only had the El Dorado hops," and I got it. Kicked my ass at the time, but it was super tasty. And El Dorado hops quickly jumped towards the top of my favorite hop list.
They are total pineapple bombs.
Yeah, they really are. Yeah, and that's kind of what turned.
But they
me
also
on
have
to
a
them.
nice hint of black pepper to them. Same thing with the Azakas.
Really?
Like Azakas are really tropical fruity, but they got this nice like spicy, peppery sort of characteristic to them that I really like. But El Dorados are up there with one of my favorite hops.
Very curious how that's going. Ooh, that smells good.
Yeah.
The nose on it's mighty fine.
It is.
Yeah.
It is very pineapple-y.
Yeah. I'm in the tropics with this one.
Yeah. Let's take a sip. I don't know why I smell bubblegum on the nose. For the record,
Oh, bubblegum?
it's
That's
weird
okay.
as hell. I don't understand
It's
why.
it's probably just the way like
The
I mean
sweetness.
there's a lot of fruitiness in this beer from the hops. So the blend of different fruit characteristics, I could totally see that come across.
What's
as,
this
like,
one
bubble
called
gum.
again?
The
This is
808
clap.
The
Okay.
808 clap.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wait, oh, wait.
Azaka, Barbe Rouge hop, Barbe Rouge.
Barbaroo.
Rouge hop.
I can't help it. Like every time I see that name, that's
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just how I say it. And
Barbaroo.
yeah, Azaka, El Dorado, and
And El Dorado.
Barbaroo.
Yeah. I like it. Something stays with me on the fit.
Yeah.
Like something stays with me.
There's a little like kind of grassy, herbally bitterness that kind of lingers in the
Okay.
back end of that beer. But up front, it is all fruit.
Pineapple. It's like it's sweet up front, but it doesn't stay sweet for
No.
me.
No, yeah, it goes pretty bitter after.
I say sweet up front, like it's hoppy, but I almost get like a heavier. I don't know. What the
No. I think sweet up front is a fair. It's a little sweet up front, but this is also
It does not stay
a
around long.
lot of hazies. You don't use bittering hops in them because they're supposed to be so dry, and mostly late edition hops because you're looking for that aroma and flavor. It's supposed to a dry beer. If you have a really dry beer, you don't need as much bitterness to balance the sweetness of the beer.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you're not having bittering hops, some of that sweetness is going to come across. But you need a little bit of that to balance the. Generally, it's like 3 to 4 pounds per barrel of hops that you're using in these beers. So you need a little bit of that sweetness to balance out the extreme hoppiness of these beers.
This is a little bit drier and a little bit less sweet than I expect for a hazy.
Yeah.
And I think I'm digging that because there's often times when you're drinking a hazy and you're like one and done, or maybe it's I might be able to have another one, but I just kind of feel like hazies are just like they're heavier, they're fuller, and while definitely I'm getting full just by drinking this beer, I don't feel like it just sits heavy on my
Well,
stomach.
I think some hazies end up being like that because I think there is a sect that like they'll do like lactose sugar in their hazies, like the milkshake IPA.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I mean, there's a lot of people that are doing those, so that might be where you're getting heaviness from. Stylistically, this beer should be really dry though,
Okay.
because of the lack of bittering hops in it. But then there's like the milkshake IPA where people use like lactose and fruit in it. And so there's a lot of variations of what the hazy is.
Yeah.
When it started coming out and becoming popular, it was one of those things that people were like, there's a lot of stuff I can do with it. It hadn't really been defined yet. I think it's more of a defined style now than it was when the hype started.
I would agree.
And just like
Boy,
the
they hit you
808
with the-
synthesizer. Just like the 808 synthesizer.
Right,
And that 808 clap that I love in all the hip hop music I listen to.
Yes.
The hazy's around to say.
Yeah.
Man.
Boy, when Hazy's hit, man, they came in hard.
Yeah. They kind of came in and sweeped the craft beer, I guess, industry for a while.
Honestly, they were a great beer they were a great introductory IPA for a lot of people because
see that.
we touched on earlier, there was that race for IBUs in IPA, like when the West Coast, like what is now known as the West Coast IPA, which was just IPA back then.
Yeah.
That race for IBUs and that extreme bitterness, and West Coast IPAs do have a lot more heft and bitterness to them. But that's not for everybody. Not everyone enjoys bitterness. I know I have a very low threshold for bitterness, so beers that I like, my West Coast IPA is actually probably less bittering hops than other places, just because I like a more balanced, easygoing bitterness, because I want to be able to drink it and not be like, ugh.
Right, yeah.
But with the Hazy IPA, it was a really good introductory because you get all that quality of hops that I love. Like when I'm about hops as aroma and flavor.
Right.
I'm about like all my hop money I put into late edition hop additions in beer. But having that low bitterness, that full body because of the extra proteins and the biohop, gives it that nice haziness. So, and you get all that nice fruity characteristic on aroma and flavor, and a lot of them are easy drinking beers. It was a really good introductory beer for the IPA style for people that were like, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
But it was also something new for people that had been drinking hoppy and IPA beers for a long time. IPAs have been, ever since craft beer became a thing, they have been the highest selling style of craft beer. I know you guys can't see it, but I'm doing air quotes.
That's true. There are air quotes here.
Part of that reason, though, is every few years, a new kind of style or new redefinition of the IPA comes out.
Right.
There was that, and I was sad that it didn't catch on.
Oh.
There was like brewed IPA for a while.
Brewed IPA.
Brewed IPAs were great. That they were also a completely dry.
Yeah.
Completely dry.
Ah.
You would use enzymes to basically completely ferment out. The enzymes would help break down all your sugars into simple sugars.
Oh, shit. Okay.
So the yeast can basically process all of it. So you basically end at a completely dry, no sugars in the beer, and then you only dry hop it.
Interesting.
But then there was, and it was very similar, the style, like, it was invented, again, air quotes, in San Francisco. I think it was Social Kitchen.
Huh.
It was either Social Kitchen or another brewery. It was one, a buddy of mine has worked at both of those, at like a few breweries out there. And there's one that he worked at. The only one I remember right now that he used to work at is Social Kitchen, though. I don't know if it was them or not, but I think it was. But the brewer at Social Kitchen had made this super dry IPA and carved it up really high, and he took it home. He was drinking it, and he drank an entire growler faster than he expected.
Whoa.
Oh, shit.
And he was it reminded him of drinking champagne, really dry champagne, like a brewed champagne.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get
So it
it.
became the brewed IPA. They didn't
Interesting.
catch on because that was coming out around the time that the hazies were on the upswing.
Yeah.
But even before that, we had black IPA, which was a cool style. I thought that was a really cool style. It took me a while to find ones that I really liked.
I'm still kind of searching around for mine.
Yeah,
I
and
agree.
it's a style that has an identity issue.
Yeah.
Because people are like, oh, it's a dark beer, so they expect it to be a super heavy, high octane stout. But really, what I think the beauty of those beers is balancing that coffee acrid bitterness of dark roasted malts with the bitterness and fruitiness that you can get out of hops, which is not an easy thing to do.
No.
And some people did it terribly, and some people did it really, really well. The first one of my favorite breweries in the U.S., Drake's Brewing in San Leandro, California, they had the first black IPA that I was like, oh, I get it.
Oh,
This
okay.
is what it should be.
Huh.
And then Firestone Walker released Wookiee Jack, and I was like, oh, yeah.
I'll have to find that one.
I totally wish we could get Firestone Walker here, but I haven't seen it.
No.
I don't think they distribute this
a number
far
of years
east.
ago when Duvel bought them, I thought maybe they would get national distribution. Unfortunately, they don't. My brother used to live in DC, and they get them out there. So
Really?
I used to. Anytime I went to DC, I would buy a shit ton of
So it makes
Firestone
it far
beer.
enough east. It just doesn't go south far enough.
Right. Well, part of that was distribution and tax laws in Tennessee.
True.
Where
Okay.
For such a hard drinking state, it's
Yeah.
taken a while for us to change a lot of laws as far as definitions of liquor and beer and
Yes.
wine.
That's only been
Taxes.
recent too.
Yeah.
I mean, within the last few years, probably.
Yeah. It was about, I'd say,
Or was
what,
it more
5
like
years
a-
ago?
Yeah.
About 5 years
Used to
ago,
not
the
be able to get
ABV
anything
law
above
changed.
like 6.2
Well,
in the
just-
grocery stores.
Yeah. It was
Bud Light Platinum was
yeah,
the
6.2,
most you could
6.2,
get.
6.3 was the cutoff for
Yeah.
what beer was considered.
Right.
Again, air quotes.
Yep.
And everything else was considered liquor. But then we got it changed to 10. It took years. it took years. Like there were multiple votes that failed on that. And even more recently, we got the Tennessee Brewers Guild. Our executive director, Sharon Cheek, has been doing an amazing job. And she got us some lobbyists and worked really closely with a lot of people on getting legislation passed to change distribution laws,
Oh, nice.
which also recently just changed. It was a big compromise between
Oh yeah.
breweries, distributors,
Yep.
liquor stores. But I think it's and actually I was actually just at a workshop the other day that the Brewers Guild put on explaining what the new laws were. But so self-distribution laws have changed.
Right.
That was what I was
And
going to
we can now, if you're doing under 1,800 barrel, if you're distributing under 1,800 barrels a year, you can self-distribute all over Tennessee as long as you're not signed up with a distributor in certain
Wow.
places.
Finally.
That gives an opportunity for the smaller guys to come in and say, hey, I can't afford to sell this beer at a certain markup, only for them to turn around or for distributors to get that cut. That just allows you to take your beer and sell it directly to the restaurant.
Right.
So that helps out the little guys a lot.
Yeah, well, I mean, before it was like you could only self-distribute in the county that you make
you
your booze
brewed in. Yeah.
But I think who it helps the most are the smaller people that are on those borders of like up where we live.
Yeah.
Like I'm Davidson County,
Right.
but Sumner County's right there.
It is.
So if you go too far north of me and open up a brewery, you would have to get a distributor to distribute half a mile down the road
Which is bullshit.
to a restaurant.
Yeah.
But so that this law helps things like that.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the main points of it. A place like us and a lot of smaller breweries aren't going to be distributing out to like Memphis or Knoxville. Like this doesn't.
Right,
You're not
yeah.
gonna take the time and money to drive 2 half barrels.
No.
A 6-hour round trip.
No way.
But what it does is when you look at Middle Tennessee being just Middle Tennessee, it's a collection of different counties. So you now, like us, it would benefit us. Like, there's a lot of stuff blowing up in Mount Juliet. We're not too far from Mount Juliet. So those parts of Mount Juliet that are in Wilson County, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those parts of Mount Juliet that are in Wilson County, like we can now drive our own beer to them
Yeah.
if we want to. And with like a new ML Rose opening up over there and the amount of development going on there, it's going to be beneficial. There's a brewery open up in Lebanon, so that helps them.
Interesting, yeah.
Like the Lebanon market, as far as distribution goes, is there's this is where my parents live, so I've been out there, but it's still growing.
Yeah.
Are there any craft breweries in Lebanon?
No, this is going to be the first brewery in
Yeah,
Lebanon.
that's right. Okay, that's
But
right. Yeah.
but that helps them to be able to distribute. They can come out here.
Right.
They can throw a keg to Homegrown or to Party
Right.
Foul. Hell, they can come throw a keg to us. We got guest taps.
Yeah.
Totally.
So it. I mean it. That helps a lot. That helps those things a lot. But those kind of changes are really slow going, and it's
Yeah.
weird for especially a hard drinking state like the South.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird that beer is so behind compared.
I don't understand.
I
What
said a hard drinking state like the South. I meant Tennessee. For me, Tennessee is just the South because it's where I live.
Tennessee is the South, but I don't understand the. What's the term I'm looking for? I've been drinking too much beer. I don't understand people's desire to just hold back. Like I don't understand the brick walls that we face constantly because some of these laws, I mean, they don't make sense anymore.
Oh,
And-
in legislature here in Tennessee.
Yeah,
Okay.
just in general, like I don't understand why some people, like within the last 5 years, only within the last 5 years have we been able to buy beer above 6.2 or 6.3 in a grocery store.
I mean-
Used to be everything else you'd have to go to a liquor store. But like,
Well,
I guess
think-
at one point it made sense, and I'm sure there's some reason for it. But as a
There
beer
wasn't-
drinker,
there- for
I
a
didn't
long
understand
time-
it.
For a long time, there wasn't a demand for the change. So if
Yeah.
nobody's, I mean, this is literally civics. Like if nobody's
Right.
pushing for things are going to stay the same if no one's pushing to change them.
Yeah,
But you don't get it the first time ever
Right.
because, especially legislators, like they've got a lot of shit on their plate. They got a lot of stuff to do.
I guess.
There also is the aspect of like there are people and industries that have more to gain for things staying status quo. So there's a balance, just like in brewing a beer, there's a balance, and there's a compromise, and there's a way that you can make all the parts work. But you can't expect, and I think too many people expect things to just turn around like that. That's not how the world works. Like things take time. You have to talk, you have to listen,
Yep.
and you have to come to a compromise. You have to find
Right.
something that works. You have to find a way where nobody gets what they want, but it works the best that it can for everybody.
That's true.
So I think it's important to remember that changes like that happen slowly because it starts with like one person being like, wait, I need this to change. And other people being like, wait, we do too. And then like having a voice, but then also having people that know how to talk in that language.
exactly. Yeah.
The language of legislation, language of the law is different than like what layman's language is too. So, I mean, all of those things take time and it takes steps and you build on it. You start a foundation and you build a house on top.
Right. I mean, I remember when Mount Juliet wouldn't even add a liquor store to anywhere.
Yeah.
And it took 3 or 4 years, I feel like, growing
Yeah.
up there. I grew up in Mount Juliet.
Well, with liquor by the drink pass, now all of a sudden you got malls and restaurants. And,
Right, yeah.
I mean,
It
Right,
wasn't
and
that
there's
long
a lot-
ago.
A lot of benefits, a lot of tax revenue that you can get out of that.
Exactly.
But there's also a lot of places like a place like Mount Juliet back then before it was getting developed like it is now.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to live in Marshall County.
Oh, man.
All right.
Okay.
So I understand like people have been like, I've been here my whole life. This is just a quiet town. I don't want ruckus
Change
and riffraff. And
Yeah.
I understand that part of it. I think booze culture, in some ways, especially in Nashville, when you look at Broadway and places that are just like, we've got this reputation of like, come here and get fucked up or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
So I understand people who have been in a place their entire lives
Uh-huh.
and they're trying to like retire and settle down and they're like, I don't want this.
Don't want the
Right.
ruckus. Yeah.
But then you also see people moving into those areas that are like, well, I don't want to have to drive to Donaldson to go to a liquor store,
right.
or I want to be an entrepreneur in my town, or, like, not all of us are riffraff, like
Exactly.
just because you open a bar or a liquor store doesn't mean that like all of a sudden there's going to be a bunch of crime and a bunch of drunk people all the time.
Exactly.
But I understand you can only your experience dictates the way you approach things, and everyone's experiences are different. And so when you grew up in a small town like that, you've been there your whole life,
Sure.
you may not know or understand that like it's not always like that. It could be, and sometimes it is. We would hope it wouldn't be, but that's part of what talking and listening, learning to speak the language of the law, or hiring someone that speaks the language of the law,
Yeah.
and coming to those compromises. That's where all that stuff comes in, and why those compromises, and why having lobbyists and having lawyers and having people that are fighting with you for that cause. That's why those things are important, because that's how you get change to happen. But changing people's minds and getting people to understand benefits, it takes time, and that's okay.
Right.
If there's one thing we are as brewers, it is patient. Because
Testament of
It's in your nature
we
to
don't
be
have
patient,
a choice,
right? Yeah.
we don't have a
You
choice.
can't speed up the production of
It's
a beer.
like it's a lot of hurrying up to fucking wait. Like,
That's true.
it's also a lot of don't worry, bosses. It's also a lot of very hard work.
Yeah. Right.
No, it is. I mean, it's a labor's job, and there's a lot of monitoring, and there's a lot of science and timing and planning that go into it. But there are those points where it's just like, well, I've pitched the yeast. the rest
Nothing else to do right now.
Yeah, the rest of it is up to the rest of it's up to the East at this point.
Yep.
So,
Man,
Mitch, what'd you think?
it was fantastic. It got us pretty deep into beer.
Yeah, that one I think put us over the
Yeah.
over the edge. You know,
I think I've had a few because I'm starting to get real philosophical with a lot of things. It started
great.
with talking
That's what we like.
about cities coming
Don't
alive.
worry. Don't worry, that's what we like. You
Yeah.
know, kind of starting out small, right? We started out, I say small, like with the lower alcohol beers, the lower ABVs, and moving, kind of staying within that realm. Like we never really jumped ABV.
This one's
but-
only 5.5.
Yeah. Really?
Somehow.
I totally did not
flagship
expect that.
flagship hazy is in the high 6s, so I wanted this one being a one-off. I wanted like a more even, like 5.5 to 6% beer that people could like. Some people don't want to drink a 6.8% beer when they get off of work,
Yeah.
True.
but I wanted to. I had all these Eldorado and Azaga hops sitting around I wanted to use. So I was like, this one's gonna be. I didn't want to brew the same beer just with different hops.
Well, I totally was just getting ready to say, I was like, we've had these, low to mid ABVs, and then we jumped up into the higher ABV, and then I think Chad had totally anticipated where I was going with that because he just jumped in with, well, this is only 5.5%. I was really about to go, we jumped into the 7% or whatever, but that's amazing. I mean, it's lower in ABV than I thought it was going to be.
But it tastes like the full body thing.
It tastes like a full body thing, and I think that's kind of the cap for me. Like that was the best way to end the multiple awesome beers that we get to experience from you before we can share something with you.
I got to make sure you get back to Murfreesboro. Okay?
That's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
that's true. It's a little bit of a drive, but I plan on eating.
Yeah,
If
bro.
I plan on eating here afterwards too.
I worked in Black Abbey and lived in Marshall County for like 4
Oh,
years.
shit.
you understand the struggle of the
I know
drive.
that life. Yeah. I'm trying to hang out with you again sometime.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah,
That's right.
Well, I think you've made a friend, number one, but number two, you've made, a
I just don't want you to get a DUI or die.
No.
That's right. That's right.
I think that's where the chicken wings and possibly the pizza are going to come in when I sit down in a few minutes. What do you?
We have a.
Yeah,
Ooh.
go for it.
If you like the chicken wings,
Yeah.
they're not as smoky, but we've got this banh mi. It's a Cubano sandwich
Ooh.
made in the style of a banh mi, so it's got
No.
like the pork, the smoked pork, the ham, and then the pickled vegetables and a really nice like very banh mi aioli on it.
I am all in on that.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
that one it's a new menu item. It's slowly becoming my go-to for lunch.
Yeah.
Dude.
On those days
super
that
tasty.
I'm like I don't care what I eat today. It's so good. It's one of my new favorite things that we have. We also are doing these like half smoked chickens now
Okay.
with a jalapeno white sauce on them.
Oh, dude.
So if you like smoked chicken wings, they
Yes.
don't- it's a different sauce than the
sweet spicy kind
the sweet spicy, yeah. But the banana ketchup hot sauce with a rub that we also do on those wings. Don't get me wrong, like everyone I talked to about the wings here, I'm like, think of your 3 favorite wings in Nashville, and we'll take one of those places if you come
Yes.
have our wings.
Yes.
But
That actually makes
we
sense,
We
yeah.
do have some new stuff here that's really good, and everything coming off that smoker. And like the pizzas are great, all the food is great, but I think really like for me where the food really shines is the stuff coming off that smoker.
Okay.
Hell yeah.
That's a hell of a plug right there. I may or may not be getting that tonight then.
I had a couple things tonight on
Yeah.
our agenda.
Maybe ordering more than one thing tonight, basically.
Oh, we've got a broccoli and beer cheese side
we
dish.
saw that on the
yeah.
menu before
So
we
the
came
beer
over.
cheese is made with the Ermagurch, my German Pilsner.
Oh,
And the broccoli, they cook it the way I love broccoli, where it's like cooked, but it's still crisp and crunchy.
Yeah.
yes.
It's not all overcooked
And it's a
chewy.
dip.
Exactly.
And no, they just put it right on top.
Perfect.
You don't
That
even
might
got
be
a
it.
dip, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Well,
let's
it's like a beery nacho cheesy.
Oh.
It's great. It's really good.
Love it.
Fine, I'll get 3 things tonight.
Yeah, exactly. You sold us, man.
Yeah. So in appreciation for you sharing your beers tonight with us, we brought something for you.
Yeah.
We wanted to kind of do that. Let's take just a quick rinse break. Let's
Yep.
get some fresh glassware
Cool.
and then let's bust it out. What do you say, Mitch?
Sounds good. We'll be right back.
All right.
We're back.
Awesome.
We are bringing the thunder on this one.
Yeah. So this is kind of like what we consider to be our lightning round. So as a way of, we've spent the last couple hours this evening enjoying drinks from TennFold, and every single one of them were great. From the Saison, I think we've had a lot of styles tonight. So we had the Saison, and then from there we moved to the Helles Lager, and then we got to sample the Marzen. I've had too much to drink, so keep me honest.
Goza.
And then from there we went to the Goza. Yep. And then from there we finished off with the Hazy. And so we've had quite a few drinks tonight, quite a few good times. This has been honestly probably this has been a blast. This has been great. But this is kind of our way to thank you for having us on tonight, is we like to always bring something that's that we've been aging for a while, kind of out of our cellar, and bring it to be able to share it with you. So what we're looking at tonight is out of TrimTab, so out of Alabama, right?
Correct.
The Language of Thunder, that's their Imperial Stout series that they do. Was this a 2019?
2019.
Yeah, so barrel-aged Imperial Stout with hazelnut and cocoa on it.
What's it say on the side there?
So a blend of 60% Language of Thunder fermented with hazelnuts and cocoa, and 40% bourbon barrel-aged Language of Thunder. So it's kind of a cuvee of two different stouts mixed together. And I don't think I've had this one. We've had the Language of Thunder before. But I don't think it's been this one.
No, yeah. I just picked up several from like a year ago trip to Alabama. So hazelnut cocoa is what caught my eye on buying it.
Smells great.
I love that Nutella shit. So
Yeah, this is just opening the bottle like that what I like to call the good side of oxidation.
The good side of oxidation.
Well, oxidation can come across bad as in like cardboard and wet paper. But the good side of oxidation is in barrel-aged beers like this, where you get a lot of that sherry character. So this is like, I noticed immediately on the nose, like it's got a nice sherry character. The cocoa nibs quality is really excellent. It's what I want out of cocoa nibs. It doesn't taste like milk chocolate. It tastes like dark cocoa nib chocolatey. Mm-hmm. It is nutty from hazelnut, but I also get some like little hints of like coconut and Yeah, and that woody oak character comes through really nice too. I mean, this is a really well balanced, really well put together, very well blended beer. I am super impressed with this.
Did you get the alcohol percentage on that one, Mitch?
I
can't remember.
And everyone, I poured a little bit for everyone out front, and they've all been trying it and tasting it. And literally on my way to and from the bathroom, I had people stopping me and being like, "Is that one of our beers? Because it's really good." And I was like, "No, it's not. But you're right, it is really good."
Yeah. Are you guys? So actually, that's a question. Are you guys brewing anything on the stout line?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
I will be, and I have I have like a year-round dark beer. My year-round dark beer is like the Scottish Ale. I think it hits a lot of the notes people want in dark beers. It's drier than something like this would be.
Yeah.
But it's also like lower in ABV. It's not a 9.7% beer.
Yeah.
It rolls in about 5.6.
Okay.
But that style also is dry and darker. It's darker but dry. So it also like I think is a good intro beer to showing people that like dark beers aren't like they're not all high octane.
Right.
They can be, and they can be done really well, like this
Totally.
beer that we're drinking right now, Language of Thunder. But it's not every dark beer.
Yeah.
But it's that we kind of cover those with guest taps right now. We've got the Black Abbey 44 Porter on right now to cover that sort of style. There's a lot of my cellar guy's only been with me for a couple months, so we're finally getting to the point where I can like turn over taps and tanks faster. After the city started opening up, after things started opening up, business started picking up, there's a point where I could only really focus on like year-round stuff.
Yeah.
Because it was just me back here. But that what I also meant was that like instead of having like 12 to 14 taps, I was only covering about like 10 taps at a time.
Yeah.
So we're trying to move more beer. I have some plans. For stouts, porters, things like that. Probably, although I don't adhere to the notion that you don't drink dark beers in hot weather, a lot of people do.
Yeah.
So they move slower. So I'm gonna wait kind of until they'd be ready, sort of that like end of summer going into fall,
Right.
sure, kind of time.
So that's. I know we've talked about kind of we have the Marzen that's kind of in the finishing stages right now. That's coming out. Plans for maybe possibly stouts later on. Is there anything that you can share with us, obviously, because there's some things I'm sure you're not allowed to talk about, but is there anything that you can share with us that's coming in the near future that we can look forward to other than the Marzen, obviously, because that was a killer beer? Is there something else in the pipeline that you guys are working on, thinking on coming out, or are you more, because everything is open so fast, you're sticking to just the year rounds right now because that's all you have time to brew?
Well, the focus is definitely year rounds right now. Standards and year rounds. With having my assistant Clayton, who I love you, Clayton. If I haven't said that enough already,
Clayton seems like a good guy.
He's great. He's great, and he's British, so he has a delightful accent.
Perfect.
Oh, we need him on the show next time.
Nah, you don't need to talk it.
We have everything we need right here, Mitch.
That's true.
No, I think right now it's like a lot of summary stuff. Lagers obviously take longer, and while they are something that I enjoy, and I feel like my lager game is pretty dialed in.
Yeah,
they take longer. So rotating lagers as opposed to year-round lagers are a little more few and far between. We brewed a one-off beer today, all Golden Promise malt, a bunch of Eldorado hops. It'll be a blend of Eldorado and Cascades.
okay.
Oh, nice.
So it'll be in that like IPA-ish sort of style, hoppy wise. Probably be in like the high 5s, low 6s, ABV wise. Just another, I've got a lot of fun hops to play with that I've been wanting to play with for a while that I finally have the time to do because we're able to turn tanks a lot faster.
Yeah.
But mostly right now, like I usually only plan like a week or two ahead in my brewing schedule because beer cares for no man's schedule.
Right.
So
you mentioned that at the beginning too.
yeah, I have ideas and I have things in the pipelines I want to do. As of last year, we'll release a Bock in December. We'll brew a barley wine like end of October, early November. The cool thing about the barley wine is I've been holding on to 2 sixtels of last year's barley wine.
Nice.
Okay.
So this year, when we keg it off, we'll hold on to 2 sixtels, and then when it's gone, we'll have a fresh and a 1 year, and then next year we'll have a fresh and 1 year and a 2 year.
Nice.
Very
So
cool.
the plan with that is to always stack up to a 3-year vertical
Yeah.
on those.
That'd be a great vertical to be able to have the different years side by side by side.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got that idea from there was this like beer bar bottle shop in San Francisco. I used to meet some friends at every once in a while. It was a little further for me. Like I didn't have a car out there, so I walked everywhere. It was a little further for me to get there, so I didn't meet them there a lot. But every time I would go there, they always had a 3-year vertical of Bigfoot from Sierra Nevada on.
Yeah.
And so after I brewed my barley wine, I was like, I'm gonna hold on some sixels of this, and I'm gonna do that.
Yeah.
Like I want to do that. So we'll end up having verticals of that. And then after next year, where we have the fresh and 1 year and 2 year, we'll kind of like reset, start aging them again.
That'll be very
Sitting
interesting
on
to
'em.
try those.
That'll be
Side,
super.
Yeah.
like a 3-year vertical side by side by side.
Yeah, I mean it's a fun thing, and it's something for, we cater to a lot of tastes and a lot of people here, but I think that's something that specifically beer nerds are gonna be really
there are
excited
the
about.
junkies that want to be able to say,
Yeah.
okay, let's do 3 different years.
And it's
of
only
the
gonna
same
be
beer.
sixels, so like we'll blow through it real quick.
It's gone.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Man.
great. That'll be
We will promote the hell out of it. Don't worry.
Hell yeah. I'm gonna try my damnedest to
We'll
be
probably
there.
be here.
Yes.
So what we like to do is kind of like the last part of the episode is we like to give you an opportunity just to plug. I mean, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, whatever. Your opportunity just to say anything you want without just saying, hey, we're putting you on the spot. It's kind of like it's unintentional, but plug. I mean, you got the floor is yours, literally.
Well, I would say for all the people here in Middle Tennessee, especially Nashville area, you have a wide variety of booze choices that are local and that are made here, that are supporting the local economy, that are employing your neighbors and your friends and the people you pass by on the street that you may never talk to. Most of these people are some of my favorite people in the world. It takes a different kind, I think, to stick in this business for a long time not better or worse, just different. They're amazing folks, and I want you to come down here and support us. We have great food, we have great beer, we have a great staff, we have great management, great ownership. But as long as you are buying Nashville booze, buying Middle Tennessee booze, you're supporting your neighbors, you're supporting yourself, you're supporting your city. If there's one thing this city is good at, it's supporting itself. It's supporting each other in times that we need to. So that would be my only promotion, my only ask is that the Nashville beer and booze scene it's been blowing up. It's really great right now. There's a lot of great beer out there. I guarantee you there'll be at least one brewery, even if you don't like beer, there's one brewery in town that has at least one beer you want to drink.
Preach it, Chad.
And if you absolutely can't find that, we've got cideries, we got distilleries, we got everything you want. So please, my promotion, my plug would be for the booze industry in Nashville. We've been working really hard. Y'all have been supporting us really hard. And I think we're all doing a really good job of it. And I hope to see more of that in the future.
Damn, man. Cheers to that.
Cheers, guys.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for doing this. This was a lot of fun.
We've done quite a few of these. I don't know if we've ever had somebody take their opportunity as a plug to promote the greater area they are. I mean, obviously everybody at heart wants to do it, because it's not necessarily about just the one brewery that they have. It's about the opportunity to drink beer locally as a whole. So everybody, I think everybody feels that way. Everybody wants to do it. It's good and it's fun to hear somebody else, after being here for 2.5 hours or whatever, to be able to sit and drink beer for 2.5 hours and feel good.
I'm a lot better on radio than I am on camera. I am super awkward on camera.
I've got that radio face going on for myself. So.
Yeah.
I think we all do, let's be honest.
But this has been great. We really appreciate it tonight. It's not something you had to do, but it's something that you definitely obliged to do for us. And
I'm happy to do it. I'm really glad to do it. Thank you guys for coming out. I don't know if this is the most rudimentary setup you've had as far as tables go. The table being a freaking chest freezer.
Yeah. It's a great setup. The chest freezer, the table.
I think this is like the most perfect brewery setup. It's a convoluted workaround.
It is. It's not the setup that you want, but it's the setup you deserve. Is that the meme? Like,
it's the setup that works.
Not the one we need.
It's a setup that works.
Yes. So it's been great. We've had a bunch of great beers tonight. Thank you so much. Definitely come out to TennFold Brewery, Donaldson, Nashville area. They're definitely doing a lot of very good stuff out here. Being able to have sours and saisons and lagers and IPAs, and it's just everything they have has been really good tonight. And we have literally smashed the entire range of different style beers, and that's all thanks to you. So we appreciate it. So it's been a good time, guys. If you're not drinking beer, start drinking beer. If you are drinking beer, keep drinking beer. And if you've never had craft beer before, definitely hit up TennFold out here, because they're doing some amazing things. And definitely stop by and say hey to everybody. And we'll see you guys on the next episode.
Woo-hoo!
Cheers.